Good evening, everyone. Can I ask you all please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's town board meeting. It is June 23rd, 2026, and we're excited about the first thing on our agenda. Not that we're not excited about everything, but the Westlake Girls Varsity Flag Football Team. We're very proud of these young ladies. We're proud of the Coach Sardo and Coach Lowell. This is only their second year, and they are Class C flag football semi-finalists. I know nothing about this, so I have to read this. They're regional champions and Section 1 champions, so it's very exciting for us to be able to give something to our young people that is other than taxes, you know. I know Danielle had worked on this with our traffic and safety to try to produce a new sign to recognize you. So do you want to show them the sign?
Sure.
You know where we have your, all the teams are displayed.
Yay!
On Columbus Avenue, we have the signage near the intersection of Nanahagan and Kensico Road. This one will be added to that, and every year we have to move one because of visibility and all, so this year you're going to be moving up. So, would you girls all like to come up, take a picture with the sign? And the coaches?
She's walking in. She was my mom. Come on in.
Coach, do you want to get in?
Thank you.
We're going to jump around a little bit on our agenda. We have the pleasure of swearing in a new officer tonight. I think, Tom, would you like to?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Tonight, we're going to swear in a new officer. I'm going to read the resolution. This is from Paul Lever, our police chief. The police department has canvassed the resident civil service list for police officer candidates interviews, and they were conducted. And Mr. Stephen Pryor of Thornwood was selected to continue with the process. Mr. Pryor passed an extensive background investigation and also passed the other required screening exams. I would respectfully request the town board authorize the hiring of Mr. Stephen Pryor as a full-time probationary police officer effective June 24th, 2006, at the salary prescribed by the collective bargaining agreement with the PBA. I move for approval to hire Mr. Stephen Pryor as a police officer.
Motion by Tom.
I second.
Daniel get the
We
second.
got
Let Daniel get the second.
second by Danielle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Steliano. Mr. Supervisor and the Honorable Town Board, on behalf of Chief Paul J. Oliva, I would respectfully request your consideration to appoint Mr. Stephen E. Pryor of Thornwood, New York, to the position of police officer, effective June 24th, 2026. After an extensive background check and passing the required medical and psychological screenings, it became clear that Mr. Pryor possesses the attributes that will make him a successful police officer with the town of Mount Pleasant. Mr. Pryor is a longtime resident and a Westlake High School graduate. Upon graduation from Westlake, he immediately went into the construction field and worked his way up to a foreman position. In his free time, he enjoys reading, working out, and playing golf. We'd like to thank the town board for affording our department with the hiring of Mr. Pryor.
Swear him in.
My job to swear you in. Okay, you gotta raise your right hand. You got it. You have to repeat after me. I
I,
state your name,
Stephen Pryor,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the rules and bylaws of the Mount Pleasant Police Department,
the rules and bylaws of the Mount Pleasant Police Department,
and I will faithfully and impartially
and I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties incumbent upon me,
discharge the duties that are put upon me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
There
Congratulations.
you go.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. At this time, I'd like to call up Stephen's mom, Kathy, and his stepfather, Chief Larry Road at Tuckahoe PD, for the honorable pinning.
Oh, yeah.
Then if you could just sign the oath book.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
To sign that?
Congratulations.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, at this time, we have a presentation by our auditors, O'Connor Davies, Scott, and Mark.
Move this. Oh, is this on? Testing? Oh, okay. Thank you. I really know how to clear out a room. What a presentation.
Do you want to adjust that, Scott?
Yeah, I'm too tall. There's a, how's that?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Very good. All right, thank you. My name is Scott Oling. I'm a partner with the accounting firm of PKF O'Connor Davies. I'm here tonight with Mark Callanan, who's director with the firm and was in charge of the 2025 audit that I will summarize the results for you right now. You're all in possession of the audited financial statement for the year ended December 31st, 2025. We've gone over this statement with the town controller, the town supervisor, members of the town board. So this is more intended to be a summary, for the public to understand how the finances of the town did for the year ended December 31st, 25. At the beginning of the audit report is an auditor's opinion. We've issued what's known as a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion on the town's financial statement. That's the highest form of assurance that we can provide any audit client. It basically says that we believe that these financial statements fairly presented what happened in the town during the year 2025. So the town operates a wide variety of funds. I'm going to try to briefly touch on each fund so you understand where the finances came out for the year. So I'm going to start on page 24, which is the general fund for the town. It's the town-wide operations that support the entire town, including those areas that are part of the villages within the town. And what you see on page 24, it's presented in budget to actual format. And when you get to the very bottom of the column is where the fund balance is. It's really how you ended up between your revenues and expenses for the town. The top part are the revenues that support the town's operations. The general fund is supported by the levy of real property taxes. It's supported by a sales tax distribution from Westchester County, supported by pilot payments, licenses and permit fees that are received, various state and federal aid that comes to the town. And those revenues for this year totaled just over $9.4 million, compared to a revised budget in the second column estimate of about $8.2 million. So you took in about $1.2 million more in revenue than you had anticipated. So that's good news. In the middle of the page is what you spent those resources on. There's various categories. In the general fund, it's primarily what we call general support functions. These are more the administrative functions of the town, like the controller's office and things like that, tax certiorari's, and various benefits that are paid to general fund employees. So in this case, the total spending came out to just over $9 million compared to a budget estimate of $9.2 million. So you ended up with savings of about $145,000 compared to the budget. So when we get down to the very bottom of the page, what you see in the first two columns is a couple of negative numbers. First $1.3 million and then $1.6 million. So when this budget was adopted at the end of 24 for your 25 operations, you actually intended to use savings to balance your spending plan. You were going to spend more than what you were going to take in revenues. And in the second column, that revised estimate was you were going to use about $1.6 million of fund balance to balance your spending plan. The good news for the town was that what you actually did was you only used 283,000 of fund balance. So you planned on draining your fund balance by 1.6, but because revenues came in better and you had some savings on the spending side, you only essentially reduced fund balance by 283,000. So you have what we call a positive budget variance of about $1.3 million. You did $1.3 million better than what your plan was. Overall, though, fund balance did decline in general by 283,000. It started with 2.2 million, so you ended the year, as you can see, with just over 1.9 million, just short of $2 million. However, the good news for the town, if you then turn to page 59, the first column on that page is the general fund, and at the bottom of that first column, you see that 1.9 million of fund balance. Of that fund balance, about 700, at the very top, about 785,000 of it is already kind of spoken for. It's what we call non-spendable fund balance. Basically can't be spent because you already kind of spent it. So that's 785,000. There's smaller amounts in between, but the key number is the next to last number, which is the unassigned. You have 1 million, just over $1 million in free and clear fund balance out of that almost $2 million. Compared to last year, that number was 0. So you actually improved your general fund financial position, your unassigned portion of fund balance, by over $1 million. That was derived from the fact that when you adopted the 2026 budget that you're in right now, you did not utilize any fund balance to help balance your spending plan in 26. You essentially, as we know, in 26 ended up breaking the tax cap, raising additional property taxes to help support the spending plan that you needed, and were not planning on using your savings account to balance your spending plan. You adopted a plan that said, hey, we expect to spend this amount, and we're going to take in revenues that cover that level of spending. So that's going to be, I think, a very good thing going forward as you begin deliberating at some point in the next few months the 27 budget, because now you're starting from like a 0 basis. Basically in 26, if your revenues come in $1 better than you budgeted, or on the spending side you spend $1 less than what you budgeted, that's all going to add to your fund balance. This past year that was not the case because you had used about $1 million of fund balance, so you had to get to that level first before your finances improved, and that's very hard to do. So now, because you're starting at 0, every dollar to the good, either on revenues or expense, is going to increase your fund balance and help stabilize your general fund operations. As I also pointed out to the town board in our discussions, the issue in Westchester County with general funds of local towns is Westchester County is the only county of all 62 counties, I think, in New York State, where the county charter basically requires the towns to be the tax collectors and be responsible for when taxes remain uncollected. In all the other counties in New York State, the towns collect the taxes for both, not only the town tax, they collect the school tax, they collect the county tax, and they collect, village taxes and so forth. But in those places, in the other counties, they collect it for a certain amount of time, and then there's a cutoff. And at that point, if that town did not collect all the taxes because either the business or a homeowner did not pay, all they do is just send that list to their counties and say, hey, we didn't collect, here's the list of everybody we didn't collect from, you go after them. And then the town is off the hook. In Westchester, it does not work that way. You, as the town, are the ultimate collector of taxes, and if they are unpaid, you still are required to fully pay Westchester County. You're still required to pay all your school districts in the town, the villages, and so forth. So whether you collect it or not, you're paying them. So your general fund needs some cushion, because if there's a big taxpayer that does not pay their taxes, it's on you, and you have to find the money to make all those places whole for the taxes. As I pointed out, even though the town budget for all your funds is about $60 or $70 million, during 2025, you collect or are responsible for collecting about $260 million of everybody else's taxes. The schools, the county, you're the collector of that. So even if you collected 99% of those taxes, you're still short 1% on 260 million. That would put you in the hole $2 million. So it's really very important, to understand that, there should be a level of fund balance in a town, in Westchester, in a town's general fund, because you have to ultimately be the guarantor of those uncollected taxes. And then it's up to you to go after those businesses or homeowners who haven't paid and, possibly proceed with foreclosure and things like that. So towns in Westchester are very unique, in New York State as a whole. So even though fund balance improved in general, that's always something you've got to keep in mind, is how well the tax collections during the year are going. Not just you collecting your own taxes, but the majority of what you collect is not for you. So that's the general fund. The next fund is the Town Outside Villages Fund. So this fund accounts exactly what it says for all the areas within the overall town that are outside the village areas within the town. And those people are taxed separately because they're already paying a village tax. So you don't duplicate, what they're paying for and the services they're paying for at a village. You only charge for certain things here that you're doing for the folks outside the village areas. And so in this fund, back on page 25, the budget for this fund at the top, the revenues were estimated about 24.2 million. They came in at just under that. They came in at about $23.8 million. There was a shortfall in one or two areas, like in licenses and permits and some other miscellaneous income. So it came in about 400,000 less than expected. However, on the spending side, you expected to spend about 26.8 million. And in this fund, it's mostly the salaries for, the police department personnel. So 26.8 million was estimated, and you spent 26.1 million. So you actually saved about $700,000. So that's very good. So again, when we get to the bottom of those columns on page 25, in this fund, just like we saw in the general fund, you expected to use almost 2 million of the fund balance. When you adopted this budget, you use savings to balance your 25 spending plan. You plan on spending 2 million more than what you took in, and you gave essentially that back in tax relief because you could have taxed an additional $2 million to have a balanced budget in 25. You didn't do that. So the plan was that potentially fund balance would go down by about $1.9 million, almost 2 million, and it did go down by $2 million. So the Town Outside Village Fund balance dropped from 5.7 million down to 3.6 million. However, back on page 59, when we look at the 3.6 million in fund balance, it's broken down into a couple of components. Some of it's non-spendable, like I described for the general fund, for 600,000. There's about 400,000 set aside to pay for what we call, vacation and sick time that might be owed to employees when they leave town service. There's about $500,000 worth of purchase orders or encumbrances for things that were ordered but not received prior to the end of the year. So that rolls over and will be spent in the current year. So what you're left with there is about $2.1 million out of the 3.6 total fund balance. And the important thing to note there is, just like in the general fund, when you adopted the 26 budget, you used no fund balance of the Town Outside Fund, whereas this year you used almost $2 million. So again, that's going to be, I think, a very good thing in 26, because as you go through the operations, like I said, if your revenues come in $1 better than you expect, or your expenses are $1 less, every dollar will add to your coffers here in fund balance and help stabilize the activities in that fund. Highway Fund. Again, back on page 25. So the Highway Fund is where you account for the expenses to maintain the roads, in the town. Obviously, it deals with snow removal and paving and all those kinds of things and all the heavy-duty equipment used to maintain the town's roads. On the last 4 columns on page 25, the revenues were estimated at just over, in the final budget, about $8.6 million. Your revenues came in at $9 million, so about $350,000 better than you planned, mostly on the state aid line. You were the recipient of some grant money that was applied for in prior years, and it finally came through in the current year that helped you buy some of the highway equipment. So that flowed through in the current year. We couldn't recognize it in prior years until it actually came from New York State. So your revenues in this fund came in $350,000 better than you thought. Your spending this year was actually lower than you thought. You expected to spend about $9.2 million. You spent about $8.3, so you saved about $800,000. Some of that is weather dependent, obviously, depending on snowstorms and stuff like that. So again, for this fund at the very bottom, you expected to utilize about $486,000 of fund balance. I think most of that was a purchase order from the previous year to buy some vehicles. And the good news is not only did you not use the fund balance and deplete it, but you actually added $704,000 to the highway fund balance. It started the year in a deficit position. You were in the hole, $340,000. You got out of the hole, and now you have $363,000 of fund balance in there. And again, on page 59, in the third column, you see the breakdown. You still have a significant amount in purchase orders in that fund for about $445,000. So technically, the highway fund is still in a small deficit of about $90,000. But I believe last year that was close to like $1 million where you were in the hole. Now, some of it was waiting for grant money and so forth, so it was a timing issue. So you're not fully out of the deficit there, but you basically improved things by, several $100,000. So you're on the right track there. You didn't use any fund balance to balance 2026. So again, if things come in better than you expect, your fund balance will go up. Lastly, I just want to talk about the special districts funds, which there's a lot of them here. So the districts fund is where you account for your contributions to the Mount Pleasant Public Library, lighting district services, refuse services, fire services, ambulance, sewer services, water district services, and drainage district services. So it's a little mixed bag within these districts. The Mount Pleasant Library District, where you raise money and provide it to the Mount Pleasant Library, along with the Village of Pleasantville. I believe you pay about 2/3, and Pleasantville pays 1/3 towards the cost of operating the library. So those operations for library this year, I'm on page 79, added about $21,000 to the fund balance in library. You have about $118,000 in that district. Your lighting districts basically broke even this year. It had $359,000 of fund balance last year, down slightly to $358,000 this year. Your refuse districts, I believe you have 2 districts. Overall, those started with about $500,000 in fund balance. You did decline by about $48,000, so there's still $450,000 available in the refuse districts. The fire districts have very small fund balances. Some of the fire districts are in small deficits. There's I think about 10 fire districts. Most of them have gotten out of the deficit. A few have small deficits like South Hardscrabble, and I'm looking at page 85. South Hardscrabble Fire, Bear Ridge Fire, West Pleasantville 1, East Bear Ridge, and Northeast Briarcliff all have very small deficits, but overall fire improved by about $7,000 this year, from $14,000 to $22,000 in fund balance. Then you have 5 ambulance districts, and I believe all of those are in very good shape. And overall, on pages 89 and 90, the 5 ambulance districts fund balance has increased by about $85,000, going from $275,000 to about $360,000 this year. Then we get to the water districts. You have, I think, somewhere around 12 or 13 water districts. There's some good news in some and some that are still struggling. So the ones that are struggling and have some poor fund balance situations are Old Farm Hill water, where the deficit did increase from 200,000 to about 350,000, and the Mill River Road Water District, the deficit increased from 176,000 to 207,000, and the Pleasantville Road Water District, where the deficit increased from 197,000 to 432,000. However, other districts, did a little better, particularly the Kensico Water District actually increased by about $376,000 this year. So overall, things are stabilizing within there, but you still have to pay attention to a couple of those water districts. And then lastly, you have two drainage districts. One of them, Drainage 2, was in a very big deficit to start the year, just over $1,280,000, had to do with a lot of, initial capital investment in the district, and now you're trying to eat away at that deficit, and that deficit did go down by about $67,000 this year, down to about $1,200,000. So overall, the districts overall improved this year, but there's still some work to do there going forward. So I guess I would just conclude to say that I believe that the town has certainly done a good job this year in trying to stabilize the finances and to kind of get at least the big funds kind of straightened out, kind of get the floor under you. So now, by not utilizing fund balance, I think by not utilizing it in 26, I think that will help you as you start going into your 27 budget, because now you're not going to have that gap to kind of close in 27. You'd be starting kind of at the same level, which should help you, obviously with the tax levy and so forth. But obviously there are always pressures on government. Things are happening, obviously, certainly at the federal level, and how that's going to trickle down to the state and ultimately to local governments is still unclear. Also, obviously, recently the state, in adopting its budget 2 months late, changed and made a pension reform changes to Tier 6. That is generally going to increase your pension costs because of how Tier 6 is changing. And now, like, a majority of employees, at least I think 50% of employees, are probably in Tier 6 versus the older tiers. But pension costs have gone up for everybody because it's done on a statewide basis. Pension contributions are very significant for local governments, and with that Tier 6 reform, they're probably going to skew higher unless the stock market continues to do, super well. But because the benefits are being increased for Tier 6 folks, that's going to cause your cost to go up. Of course, health insurance is going up, certainly more than the 2% cap. You have labor contracts, COLA adjustments that you provide all your employees. So, it's a very difficult environment to try to stay within the property tax cap and keep the services, not just here, but, I say this, in most places. It's very challenging to cover all those costs, without not exceeding the cap, essentially. It's a big, it's a big dance. So with that, I've talked enough. So I'd be glad to take any comments or questions that you have. Thank you.
Questions open to the public?
It wasn't going to be a back and forth. We just wanted to be informational, to try to share the information in the budget.
No, I mean, I'd have to digest this, obviously.
It's a lot.
Presented to me, yeah, so
It's a lot.
I'll come back with questions, for sure.
Sure.
So Scott, I like what you said with respect to not using the fund balance and how financially we're going to be in a better position for not only 26 but 27.
You should be. I mean, obviously, it depends, what's actually going on, but mathematically, you should be, because you don't have that gap to close, that you didn't take any money from savings for 26 versus what you took in 25. So everything that you generate in the current year will, from $1, go to fund balance.
Any other board members? Question?
I think I asked mine earlier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you for your
too.
time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Thank you.
Okay,
Have a
we'll
good
see you.
night.
Thank you so much.
May I please make one comment? Since the materials were not available to the public for us to review, are you going to have another meeting to have the general public comment on anything, any findings in the audit report?
First of all, we never had a public presentation like this before. We thought it'd be a good idea just to give some details of the budget. Obviously, the budget is open to the public as of after today. You're welcome to get a copy of it, or it'll probably be on the website for review. I don't know what questions, we have business from the floor coming up. If you want to ask a question, you're welcome to do that. I'll try to answer whatever I can. Moving on, we have public hearings, continued public hearing to amend Chapter 14. Boards and councils, Article 1 Advisory Board and Architectural and Community Appearance. This is a continued public hearing. Anybody wish to comment about this is welcome to do so. We kept this open from the last meeting. Right, we continued it from the last meeting. Yes.
Honorable board members, Dennis McCarthy, Hawthorne. So I guess one of my questions is, what is the difference between the Architectural Review Board and the Advisory Board on Architecture and Appearance? Is it the same thing or are they different?
Same thing.
It's the same thing. So my second question is, what is each town board's consideration of this update to the code, and why?
I'm in favor of the changes in the sense that, A, it brings in some residential projects, so subdivisions, which prior were not in the purview of the Architectural Review Board. It typically was just commercial signage and facades and frontage of properties. I think that that's a big add. And I'm also in favor of allowing projects that might change after they've been approved and received their planning board approval, that those changes are then reviewed once again. I think it's an added layer. I know you had concerns about who reviews that added layer. I like it to be in the position of the town board. I think that we typically don't get involved in the planning board process, as you know. This would be on sort of one-off cases where a project is already in construction. And I think that it just adds a layer of people who are the most directly accountable to the public. And I think that's best from my perspective.
So after the last meeting, we did go back and we did discuss this at length and your comments. I think for me, the biggest component is adding that additional layer for us to get involved once construction has started and changes are made.
Okay.
But just to clarify, the board, so it goes, there's two paths. Go to planning board or any of the boards, then it goes to ABCA. ABCA then it's part of the plan for the planning board, unless the planning board wants to change it. Now they go build, they can't change it. It's gotta be pursuant to the planning board plan and what the architectural review board proposed. If there's a building permit where there's no planning board requirement, it's gotta go to the board, the architectural review board. They make a recommendation, they have to follow that. If there's a change, that's when it comes to you.
Right.
So before, the change could be handled by the building inspector, now it has to come to your board. And you may then say, architectural review board, you look at it again, what do you think? But that's the change, as addition to what Mark said earlier about, the subdivision.
Subdivision.
So that's the change.
These are strictly architectural,
Correct.
aesthetic changes, nothing structural, nothing that would have to do with SECRA. It's just colors of siding, frames of windows,
So,
roof choices.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the
yeah,
rest
my
of the
thought
board.
process was, the second part of what Darius explained that I really liked was that if I'm an applicant and I go to the building department and I get approval, then I go to the architectural review board and they approve those plans, I fully expect them to be exactly. There was a case where that didn't happen, where it was changed. And the reason why we're implementing this change is because now there's a system of checks and balances where if there is a change, if it goes from the building department and it's changed, we have to know about it because we don't want to have a different plan than what was presented to the building department. So it's a system of checks and balances. It's not usurping the planning board. It's not affecting their authority. It's an isolated case where we're making sure what was approved, if there's a change, that we see it and we make sure that we coordinate with the building department and the applicant, and that it's kind of like ensures there's a system of checks and balances.
There have been some situations where town board was not aware of some changes that took place. And it was like, you know, we were the last ones to find out what was going on. So, and the architecture review board feels like, well, you know, we made recommendations, nobody followed them. So it's trying to give them a little more of a part in it. And then having the town board say, we're not crazy about that change, so it's got to go back. Planning board's got to review it again.
Yeah, look, this was done, all right, in the case where architectural review board approves something, and then as it gets built, the planning board says it's okay to do something a little less than what you had come through the architectural review board for. So what we're giving the architectural review board is more teeth to make sure that what actually gets built is what was presented in front of the architectural review board. In the event that there's a disconnect with the building department and the architectural review board, then it comes to us. So it's a way of ensuring that what you're seeing in front of the architectural review board is what actually gets delivered.
So I guess the issue is that it goes to the ARB, or whatever it's renamed now. It goes to the planning board, and then it has a building inspector to enforce what was the process. I don't understand why it needs to go to the town board afterwards. I think that if the process is enforced, there's it's not necessary to come to you guys. It's not necessary. It should go back to the ARB or the planning board or the building inspector should ensure that what was to code should be built. Because this actually came about of a particular property. Particular property, 500 Commerce Street, that was brought to you, 500 Elway rather, that was brought to you, and it wasn't built to code. And there's no sidewalk there, which not only violates the plan, but it violates the whole Envision Mount Pleasant comprehensive plan. I'm talking. And so the whole thing is that this is brought to your attention. And I feel that that should have been corrected. I feel that that property owner, as much as I like the guy, I voted him on the planning board, but from a business perspective, should have followed the code, should have followed the plan, and should have completed what he did and shouldn't have been given a certificate of occupancy by our building inspector. So that's the conundrum here, okay? Because I feel that this is what this was created for. And, you know, this is not like last two weeks ago where something happened and another department made a decision and the council people weren't aware of it. This is something that's going to change the code. And it's going to take away from what the planning board and the architecture review board does. And it's going to put it in your hands, which it shouldn't, statutorily. And there's other cases, when I served on the town board, that properties came to us because they overbuilt. And we had to approve them. And I don't want to see any more of that. You know, I'm not going to get into it. I'm trying to be very nice here, but I'm trying to be very respectful. But I seriously, seriously want to emphasize that the town board should not be in this position, that it creates ethical and political issues for you in the future. It really does. And, you know, I support you guys 95% of the time. The 5% is this, it's the process. The process is so important to ensure the public are represented and to ensure that things work the way they're supposed to. So I really, really want to emphasize that you're all here make a judgment. It's going to affect the future of the town. You know, it's not something that happens day to day. This is something that's going to significantly affect the future of the town. So I guess my last question would be, would this correct that issue at 500 Elway, enforcing this? Would something actually happen there? Because that's the only way I'd support it.
We thought so. And first of all, these are not code changes. With nothing to do with codes. These are aesthetic. The sidewalk is a whole different issue. There's a problem with the state getting a permit and all that. The state held this up for 2 years. And it's just finalized, just coming up pretty soon, that they're gonna give him a permit to put the sidewalk and allow him to do his plantings and finish it off. There's full intentions of doing that. He's been asked. We wanted to know why.
It's been up for sale. It's a almost $13 million.
Anything's for sale at the right price. That doesn't matter what the sale is. It's got a temporary CO. It doesn't have a full CO.
Okay. I, again, just emphasize that that's my concern. There's been issues when I served in the town board, and unfortunately, when some people do things, they do them again. And that's the conundrum that you're in right now.
Dominic Vita Hawthorne. So can I just ask a point of clarification? The ABACA, the Advisory Board on Architecture and Community Appearance, that is indeed the ARB, the Architectural Review Board? They are one and the same?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I've appeared before them, and I will tell you, having appeared before them, the Zoning Board of Appeals, this town board, and the Planning Board, you all don't know what each other knows or what each other is doing necessarily. That's come up time and again, many times. I know you're puzzled, Tom, but it's true. We could look back in the record. And that's what concerns me. We're giving teeth to the ARB when we should be giving teeth to the planning board. These decisions should come back to the planning board if they involve a site plan that has changes after the fact. I understand the building department wants to have a role here, but its role is in issuing permits, and its role is more administrative. And I understand that you want a role here, but based on my experience with dealing with both this board, the ARB, the ZRA, everybody, I know that the planning board doesn't know what you guys know, and you may not know what they know. There may be something in that record that you don't know, and then you are later approving absent any of that review that the planning board had. Plus, how much of this lacks transparency? And I understand these are small little aesthetic things, but you're not a homeowners association. You're a town board. Your role is legislative. If you want to legislate those kinds of things, change the zoning, change the entire zoning affecting the entire area and what things should look like aesthetically. But getting into the weeds like this, which is really a planning board thing to do, does not seem like a wise use of your time, nor does it seem like something you would spend much time on. I understand it takes some heat off the building inspector, but really it should go back to the planning board. I would hope that you would reconsider writing this, and just instead of the town board receiving this, it goes to the planning board, back to the planning board to make a decision. I also think the ARB, if their role is advisory, keep it advisory. They advise the planning board on what should and shouldn't happen, and that's where it should sit, and it should stay that way. Because you get into certain situations where if you give them more power, they then become the usurpers of the planning board, just like Mr. McCarthy was saying the town board would do here. And also, what problem is this trying to solve? That's what I'd like to know. I'd like to understand from this perspective. There's so many issues the town is facing. Why are we focusing on this?
We're focusing on a lot of things. This isn't the only thing we're dealing with this year, okay?
Understood.
This came up, we're trying to deal with it. We're not ignoring it.
The way that you're dealing with it, though, by giving the town board additional power that really should be with the planning board, is something to just reconsider. That's all I would ask.
We're not giving the Architecture Review Board any more power either. You making it sound like we want it, don't give the ARB more power. We're not.
If they say
It's an
something,
advisory board.
does it remain advisory under the
Yes,
change?
it does.
That's absolute?
Yeah,
think
so
that's
I
why the
think
name
the
changed.
only change here is, right, again, if it's with the planning board,
Yeah.
the Architectural Review Board gives recommendations to the planning board. The planning board does this, the Architectural Review Board doesn't look at the site plan. They're looking at windows and facade and colors, things like that, right?
Signage.
So if it's with the planning board and there's a change, it'll go back to the planning board and the ARB. If the planning board's not involved and there's a change during construction, the builder runs out of funds, let's say, and can't put the windows in they wanted to put in. Instead of the building inspector making that decision on his own and possibly changing the entire appearance, it would come to the town board, it would go to the ARB and come back to the town board.
And if
And
the,
that-
if
I'm
the
s-
ARB, I apologize for
No, no,
cutting
no.
off. If the ARB says at that point, okay, use this kind of window, for instance, as the illustration, and then they use that kind of window, does that go to the town board then to say to use that kind of window? How does that work? How does that piece work?
So,
So,
let
I'm
me
gonna
try
defer to
explain it.
Darius.
Let me
Sure.
try to explain it.
Yeah,
The name did not change. Currently, Article 1 is the Advisory Board on Architectural and Community Appearance. Not changed. So still the same name. Then it's under Section 14. The change was made because of the project that
Dennis.
said. There's two paths. You need site plan approval. You have to go to the planning board.
right.
Right? And you have to go to the architectural board, whatever you want to call it, the ABVCA. They make a recommendation on windows, on eaves, whatever they do. It goes to the planning board for site plan. Now they got to finalize the site plan. They have the recommendation. The planning board can change it if they want, or they can agree with the ARB in the final approval. Then, if someone wants to change that,
This is
in the
after
middle
site
of
plan
construction,
approval.
they say,
Right.
I can't do this because I can't do that flat roof, I need an eve roof. The planning board has to, the only ones that can
It
change
goes
it.
back to the
Yeah.
planning
Has
board. It
to.
does not come to us.
That's what it says in here.
Right.
The narrow change that was made was when it doesn't go to the planning board for site plan approval. It still needs to go to the architectural board for recommendation and for what they need to do. Before, the building inspector arguably could say, you don't have to do that eve, you could do a flat roof. Now, the town board is saying, we don't want that being done administratively. If there's a change, we want to see it and why. Why can't you do that eve like that? Why does it have to be flat? And they're gonna say, Architecture Review Board, you look at it too.
Why would that go to them, though?
Because
Why wouldn't it go to the planning
because
board?
the planning board doesn't have any authority
planning board's
over
not in-
There's
a
cases
not a
where
site
they
So
don't
this,
go to the
this
planning
is not something that's gone to the planning board
Correct.
first, but
Ever.
500 Commerce went to the planning board first.
That's a different
So this does
scenario.
not solve that issue.
The 500 Commerce Street, we made it clear in the code now also, that if any site plan approval is granted, the only one that can change the review of the Architecture Review Board is the planning board. So yes, now it has to go back to the planning board. The building inspector can't make that change either when there's a site plan approval. So it's saying basically builders, whatever the planning board says, or the Architecture Review Board says in a building permit application, or a site plan for the planning board, you have to follow that. And if you don't follow it, you gotta give a good reason. And if it's a site plan, planning board has to review it, and if it's just a building permit, this board will review it with
The
work with
ARB.
the ARB. That's the purpose of it. It's not granting any more power to them. It's making sure builders build according to the plans. That's what is the
The,
reason.
the plans as approved by the planning board,
When there's a site plan,
when there's a site plan.
or by the ARB, which we call it the ABBCA, for a non-site plan situation. Because not every situation gets site plan approval. If you do a 2-lot subdivision
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
you build 2 new houses, that doesn't need site plan approval. But it has to go to ARB. So now they say, okay, here's the ARB approval, and the house is gonna look like this. Now they wanna make it like this. No, it's gotta stay like this unless this board, with consultation with the ARB, says it's okay to change it. All new plans, why? Why can't you do it that way? That's gonna be the question.
so I guess the question is, why should that go to the town board to decide and not the planning board to
Because the planning
decide
board
at that
never
point?
reviews that
Did
plan.
it, did it?
It would not,
It's a whole
because they
separate
haven't
case.
reviewed it initially.
Correct.
Exactly.
So if
That's-
they've never been
Exactly.
involved, it wouldn't go back to them, it would come to us and the ARB.
Got
If
it.
the planning board's involved, it goes back to the planning board and the ARB, we do not get involved.
So have we established that this does not actually solve the problem that 500 Commerce
It
created?
does solve the problem.
Okay, how does it do that?
Now it would go to the planning board. Any change, the reason why 500 Commerce happened, there's a few issues there that were said, some of them incorrect. There's no code violation.
Right.
There was a change in how the roof looked and I think the windows, right? And that went, now under the current code, the building inspector okayed that change. Now the new code, the planning board would have to change.
Right, it has to go
Oh,
back to
correct.
the planning board.
So
Right.
that helps 500 Commerce. The issue of the sidewalk and the plantings are happening, as the supervisor indicated. The DOT did not give, there had to be a taking from the DOT to give to the 500 Commerce. That took, unfortunately, 2 years. Why? I don't know. Ask Albany. That finally happened. It was approved. The local permit, there was a meeting, I think, late last week. Hopefully that sidewalk goes in and the plantings go in the next few weeks. That's our hope. But it does fix the problem with 500 Commerce. And it makes sure that builders comply with the plans that were submitted. And if they don't, they have to explain it to the planning board for site plan applications or this board for building permit applications.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address this issue? The board have any further questions or advisement on this? Are we comfortable with this?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. So we need a motion to approve it.
I'll make a
Changes.
motion for resolution 227-26. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
226.
No,
226.
226, yes.
Motion by Danielle,
I'll second it.
second Joe.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is public hearing to amend Town Code 180, subsection 180-1 to 180-5A, steep slope protections. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wish to make a comment is welcome to do so at this time.
Good evening, Stephen Cavey, Conservation Advisory Council Chair. We're limited to one public hearing comment, so this would not be wetlands also, then strictly to steep slopes. Okay, well, our comments on steep slopes are very limited.
I'm easily confused.
Pardon me?
I'm easily confused. So
Oh,
we go one
yeah,
at-
keep things centered and finite. I got it. Okay, well, the council met last night and we did review this code. We will be providing some additional written comments. Is it correct that the public comment period will extend past the public hearing tonight?
We can do that.
We'd ask that because we only met last night and I'd like to provide more detailed written comments. But for now, I just wanted to offer some very brief comments on steep slopes. And that is that, well, we would suggest that the steep slopes for both excessively and steep slopes should have the same 100% deduction for net developable area. Both of these, excessive and very steep slopes have similar environmental impacts, and reducing the developable lot area by only 50% for steep, very steep slopes, I don't think gives the full protection that code could provide. So that's our first suggestion. There are some very specific items here. 180.-5B, clearing is listed, which we presume refers to tree clearing, but it's not clear in the code, and we would recommend that the definition be more specific with regard to clearing, that it refers to clearing of trees, and at the same time, that a permit is required if you're clearing, and make that clear in the steep slopes code, in this definition of clearing. The other thing we want to introduce at this time, though, is that the council's been recommending amending the tree preservation code, which definitions, I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor, I just wanted to be sure you're
going to submit all these details, right?
Yes, we will, but I thought it would be useful to provide a very broad brush of what we're looking to do. So the point that I wanted to make with regard to clearing is that the council has been recommending for some time an amendment of the tree code that is more specific to what clear cutting is. The code currently doesn't really provide the type of oversight on this type of activity. It's got little or no oversight, in fact, on clear cutting. And if we're going to talk about clearing with regard to the steep slopes, I think it would be valuable to establish how this clearing is affecting trees, and at the same time to consider revising the tree preservation code so that clear cutting is more specific and defined and regulated.
Wouldn't that be separate from the steep slope?
It would be, but what we're suggesting is that if we're going to be more clear in defining clearing in the steep slopes code, that we should be more specific on what clear cutting means. And if we're going to be more specific on what clear cutting means, at the same time, it would be very useful to amend the tree preservation code so that clear cutting is there's more oversight and more specificity on it. It's a gap that we have now.
So if we update the tree cutting or tree clearing code, whatever it is, that wouldn't also help with the steep slope clear cutting?
If we're going to have a steep slopes code that talks about clearing, which it does, although it doesn't have the definition of clearing in the code, it should be defined. If we're going to define clearing and clear cutting, then we should also at the same time have a code in the tree preservation code that establishes some regulatory control over clear cutting. Right now, the tree preservation code only regulates clear cutting when a subdivision application is under review by the planning board. A homeowner can go, I hesitate to put this into the public record because it's scary to have people understand that clear cutting is not regulated or controlled in this town. Most municipalities have a very specific code that regulates clear cutting. You can't just cut down all the trees. And in fact, there are a number of other conditions that relate to tree clearing along borders, a whole variety of them. I don't want to get into I hear the hard-boiled eggs are done, so
You're going to make some suggestions for the tree code also?
we have provided a number of times, we've had this discussion informally at work sessions, as you recall, Mr. Supervisor, and we would like to continue that discussion and see some action. We're very pleased to see that the town is moving forward on steep slopes codes, and as the master plan, comprehensive plan recommends, taking a deduction on developable lots based on steep slopes, reducing them. And we're very pleased to see that the 100-foot buffer is now being reviewed as a new code amendment. But what we're suggesting is that we've got another step here, and that is to take on the tree code. And to, if you're going to put clearing in the steep slope code, you've got to define it, and then at the same time, it's very useful if the tree code establishes some regulatory control on conditions and restrictions around
That's
that.
a good point. I
So,
appreciate that.
Anyway, the other, just a very brief thing with regard to the code is that just mechanically, the code has, the amendment has some calculations on 50% and 100%. It would be useful to have a couple of examples. For instance, in the current tree code, tree preservation code, there is a whole multiple pages of sample calculations of I forgot the term, the way in which trees are removed in the calculation compared to the acreage, etc. So there's a variety of examples there. There's no examples in this proposed steep slopes code on deductions. It's a pretty straightforward calculation, but it would be useful to show some examples so that people understand that. The other thing I just want to say is that it is very useful to be I want to circle back to our primary point, which is that we do recommend that the 50% deduction for, and I always get a little lost on which one is which. I know that there's steep slopes, there's really, really steep slopes, and there's ridiculously steep slopes. But I think you call them something different here.
Very steep slopes, 50%.
Right, right. Very steep slopes, we think should be at the 100% level as well. They provide similar environmental impacts from development. And then lastly, there should be some consideration to whether or not buildings should be, how steep slopes and construction on steep slopes is reviewed. This revision is strictly limiting the amount of developable area as a consequence of calculating steep slopes. I think we really need to start looking at whether and if building on steep slopes needs to be even more closely restricted. It's allowed by permit, and the permits are often granted under a variety of circumstances. I know the time we're up, but let me just say that we need to understand that this isn't just a mechanical process. These steep slopes, when they are cleared of trees, and when they are covered with impervious material, houses, driveways, roadways, pools, any number of things, they create flood consequences. That actually goes hand in hand with the wetlands code as well. But they create environmental impacts that now we're starting to regulate. We need to be very strict in how we regulate them and understand that the consequences are very severe. We've seen this in this town numerous times. Steep slopes need to be protected. The deduction from developable land is a good step, but another step is to have more stringent regulatory control over what gets built on excessive and very steep slopes. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. So, 226-26 should have been to close the public hearing. And then 250-26.
Good evening. My name is John Edwards, and I live on Linda Avenue, and which has been under construction for the past more than 15 years to the south of me. And to the east of me is the Kingsview project. I'm directly downslope from that ongoing project. That my first notes about the Kingsview project are dated to 2018. At the present time, there's maybe 80% of the road built linking Bellevue to Evelyn, and they've been working on that constantly. I'm in favor of what you're suggesting tonight with improving the reduction of land for building on steep slopes. These are very difficult projects to do. If you look and drive along Linda Avenue, you can see a number of examples of what should not have been done. 776 Linda Avenue has mesh covering the vertical wall on it because the slope is degenerating. 762, I made some measurements one day, and a vehicle exiting the top of the slope would actually run into the house, which now, since there's going to be a road above it, becomes possible. 793 took more than 3 years to build. you're looking at 100%, these are all very difficult houses to build. On Linda Avenue, there are 2 lots on the west side that are going to be extremely difficult to build. They've already been partially terraformed, that a lot, Oswald Panetta, back when he was active, dug out quite a bit of it. So now it sort of goes 15, 20 feet straight down and then levels out back where the retaining wall is. He originally put up an 8-foot retaining wall that the building department made him take down because it was supposed to only be 4 feet. They're extremely difficult houses to build, although I think that I don't have the, maybe it would have to be 761, I think. They, at a recently built house, it was sold right away, I think. I think it was built by Coolin, and they did a very nice job, the family looks to be. But the 2 lots immediately to the north of it are going to be extremely difficult to develop. And in fact, they're both up for sale. And as far as I know, there is no ongoing plans for them. There's construction equipment just sitting there. There's no ongoing plans to build there, but there's construction equipment just sitting on the side of the road. It's privately held land, and I've complained to the town board once before about this, that it's an eyesore. So coming back to the steep slope lot, I like what you've done. I think that you need to really do pay attention, and I agree with Mr. Caffey about this relates back to water management, because, and certainly with the Cedar Knoll project, as it has been envisioned, there have been a number of comments already made on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second page, because we already talked about the first issue. Try to save paper, because I like the trees as well.
Okay, Dennis McCarthy again, Hawthorne, Honorable Board. I want to congratulate you, thank you for bringing this up, steep slopes, like I said before, along with the wetlands. And I hope you'll keep a public hearing for 30 days on both. I think it's really important, again, for the process, for the public to participate in this process, because this is, these are one of the greatest improvements to our environmental situation in our town. So, you know, I want to congratulate, and I actually want to thank our advisory chairman, Stephen Covey, for mentioning the tree preservation. I agree, kind of, you don't see it, but the steep slope protection, you know, it goes one with the same. It affects the tree roots, it affects, you know, undergrowth, and it's the trinity, like I said the last meeting. The 3 of them really belong together. The Conservation Advisory Council did a tremendous job in creating a natural resource inventory, the NRI. The Mount Pleasant NRI, which is kind of hard to find, but I got it through our wonderful town clerk. It's 300 pages, and it's phenomenal. It really is phenomenal, and it actually shows the situation up in Linda Avenue. It shows clear cutting up in Linda Avenue, what occurred, just beautiful trees, just clear cut. It shows trees just underrooted, tremendously underrooted. It shows our culverts, how they're just tearing away at the brick and mortar of the tributaries that go to the Bronx River. I believe it's Clove Brook and Davis Brook go to the Bronx River. So I really want to emphasize, I agree, the 100% should be for both the very steep slopes and the excessive steep slopes. And I put at a very minimum, it should be 25% reduction on steep slopes. And I just want to emphasize, that's 100% deduction for very steep slopes in Cortland and Pound Ridge and Briarcliff Manor and Sleepy Hollow. It's 50% reduction on steep slopes in Tarrytown. That's the lower. Newcastle is 25%. And Tarrytown is 50%. In Lewisboro, it's 75%. It's very important to look at where we are, Mount Pleasant, in the whole county. As the town supervisor and you guys have said, most of the town highways come through us. Most of the water comes through us. So Newcastle and North Castle and Lewisboro and Pound Ridge and the village of Croton-on-Hudson, they've recently increased these codes. And I think it's really important that we do the same, because all these are tied into, the Bronx River starts with us, with our town. Clove Brook and Davis Brook is the Bronx River, along with some from the Kensico that's dammed off. So we have an obligation, really, to not just our town, to Valhalla, but we have an obligation to the municipalities below us. And we're actually in intermunicipal agreements with New York State, with New York City, with Department of Environmental Protection, or Conservation rather. You know, these are things that we're required to do, we're required to uphold, and with Westchester County Planning. So again, I want to emphasize 25 to 50% on steep slopes, 100% on very and excessive, and really that comes down to is where you go in the wetlands. I'll speak about the wetlands shortly, but I really, the wetlands, the steep slopes, and the tree preservation, please look at the tree preservation in the future also. Thank you.
Thanks for providing the research too, Mr. McCarthy, the neighboring.
Use the online thing again.
Oh, good.
Nancy Rogers Gallaudet, 816 Sleepy Hollow Road, Briarcliff, Town of Mount Pleasant. I was going to echo a couple things that everyone has said already, so I won't belabor that too much, but the proposed amendments to the steep slopes and the wetlands are critical, and others have said, you know, they're necessary protections to strengthen the town's environmental codes. I mentioned at the last meeting, I've witnessed a numerous permit exceptions which have allowed developers to count unbuildable steep terrain and wetlands towards baseline lot yields. And I think in addition to the changes, which are terrific, we've really got to shore up these exceptions, because there's no point in making these changes and not upholding it. And they're too frequent. I mean, I'm not taking account, but I think you could do that, as I said last time. And unfortunately, the planning board gives into those demands far too easily. And, you know, our most exaggerated case for our street is the 715 Sleepy Hollow Road project, which I'm not going to belabor. I have two requests this evening. Again, the updates are commendable step forward. I definitely support the 100% deduction for the excessively steep slopes and the ridge line. There are not a lot of towns that have that ridge line protection, and that may get a little bit to Steve's point. However, the proposed 50% deduction for steep slopes is significantly lower than other municipalities right in Mount Pleasant. Briarcliff, Sleepy Hollow, and Pleasantville all have 100% deduction. And because they're recognizing that the 25% gradient slopes are susceptible to severe erosion and mudslides when cleared, and you know, given our local flooding vulnerabilities, particularly in the hamlets, I read a lot about that, the town board should tighten up this tier to 100% deduction before passing the final law. So I have a question for you, which I alluded to in the last meeting. Will the steep slopes and wetland revised codes be grandfathered to pending application?
My understanding is that they are not, but I'll defer to council.
You know, it's tricky. I'm not going to opine in public, so whether it applies or not.
Grandfathering?
Whether, you mean current applications that are pending?
Okay, I'm going to take that as a no, or that you haven't discussed it maybe enough. So I'm going to take it as a no for the purpose of the point I'm making, because it kind of addresses your point, Darius. So
I wouldn't take it either way.
okay, I didn't get an answer, so I'm just going to go that way and make my point.
Go ahead.
So in light of that response, that the proposed revisions either haven't been determined that they'll be grandfathered or not, I formally request that the town board immediately enact, I'm joining the chorus here, a temporary development moratorium on all pending major subdivision and cluster applications containing regulated steep slopes and wetlands. I did a little research on this one as well, and under New York State land use precedent, the town and planning boards must apply the zoning and environmental regulations in effect at the time of its final decision, not the laws in place when the application was initially submitted, because pending applicants don't possess the rights to build until final approval. So a temporary moratorium is the most appropriate and defensible legal mechanism to prevent what I would refer to as a race to the finish line. Because that could happen here. And pretty much, at least I can suspect 715, but that's just my opinion. The town board should pass a targeted moratorium on pending major subdivision to ensure no applicant receives a final approval under the old flawed gross acreage calculation guidelines before this local law is enacted. This not only upholds the legislative intent of the town board to protect these vulnerable areas, and again, I really applaud that, it's great. It also protects the town and by consequence its residents from possible legal action if fast tracking is not prevented. So that's a thought I would like to leave you with. I too would suggest, particularly for the wetlands that's going to come up, that the public hearing must be extended for 30 days, maybe have another public hearing, because the wetlands are very, very complicated. A lot to review and a lot to get through and do some comparison. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Gibson Craig, 120 Polywiggle Lane, Pleasantville. Also serve on CAC, but my comments are my personal comments as a resident. I think what I heard tonight is all great. Mine are more from a single-family homeowner's perspective and also someone who's in the building industry. I believe it's section 218.35 of the code. Yes. There could be a downstream effect of the steep slopes code on section 218.35, which permits homeowners with 2 acres or more to build guest houses. The language states that it must be placed in a spot on the property that is subdividable in accordance with all regulations. I don't know if that's the intent of this broad speaking steep slopes code. So I would just ask that any downstream effects on single family homeowners' abilities to just use their properties in ways that are reasonable be considered. I think similarly for the wetlands permit, there should be a list of generally permitted activities within the increased buffer. For example, someone should be able to place a shed, 80 feet from a stream, right? I mean, maybe they need to put a Coltech in the ground, but there's very reasonable ways to be building. And with the simple nature of the code, it's it just is a lot of uncertainty and could lead to a lot of negotiations with unnecessary layers of bureaucracy for simple, small, incremental changes to existing homeowners' rights as a homeowner that are portrayed in the current code. But those are just my 2 comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Dominic Vita Hawthorne. On the steep slope protection, I wanted to echo some of the other speakers, Ms. Gallaudet, Mr. McCarthy, and I wanted to yet again join the chorus that Ms. Gallaudet joined as well about asking for a moratorium on large developments. There are many things that you are doing, Mr. Supervisor, as you mentioned, that the town board is doing. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of considerations that need to be taken for all of these things that you're doing. And we certainly appreciate that. 3.5 years after the Envision Mount Pleasant came into being and adopted, that you are taking our comments that we've made in past meetings seriously and enacting these things. So one, I want to say I'm grateful, like Mr. McCarthy said, that you're doing this. I also want to express my gratitude to Mr. Cabby for speaking up on the steep slopes and the tree preservation. These are really important issues in our very hilly town that is very developed. There are some huge projects in the pipeline that you all know about, and those huge projects could have really big ramifications in this now rainy season that we're coming upon. We don't need to do anything else to make things worse than they are. We need to do things that make them better. And thank you for taking some action, which you've done, to do that. But I would request, particularly if these things can't be grandfathered, I would request that you consider a moratorium on large developments, not the small stuff like sheds, large developments, to take the time to get it right for our town, for now and for the future. That's all I'd ask. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to make one point to Dominic's. We always try to get it right. We do. Through all the years that I've been involved, there has always been changes, modification to zoning laws forever. So the master plan was done, yes, but that doesn't mean nothing will ever change from that, the models that were derived from that. There's always changes that have to happen. You learn something new on a certain project, you have to address it for the future, you have to make changes. So we do try to do things the right way, but there will always be adjustments going down the road. If that makes any sense, but
Hello, good evening. Apologies for the attire. I was watching this on YouTube while I was washing the kids, so I wanted to come here and voice my my thoughts. I wanted to first acknowledge that I've noticed a lot of the website.
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Just state your name and.
Oh,
your
Yael,
address.
Sherman Avenue. The website and getting the notification and everything has really helped, at least for me, to know what's happening in terms of these meetings, and getting the nuance and information out there. So I appreciate that. I think that was a really positive move. In terms of what everybody here, residents, have shared, I do agree, especially living on Sherman, a lot of people kind of cut commerce to go through Sherman, and there is its own complexities on Sherman Avenue in terms of hills and having water issues. So I do agree with that. And I guess I wonder, is there a percentage amount of, like a percentage that we go by on how much can be developed versus not in a town for it to be kept the town, I guess?
no.
Okay.
If you own a piece of property, you have certain rights to develop that property within the regulations of the town. If you can't meet those requirements, you can't develop it. But you can't just tell people that property, well, no more, we're not gonna allow any more.
No, I'm not saying, I'm saying like hypothetically, if we all decided to develop on our properties, is that like the whole town is going to be developed? Is that like, is there a certain amount of percentage of the town that's kept a certain way versus developed and what that looks like?
Well, zoning handles that, current zoning code. There's no set percentage if that's what you're asking, but
Yeah.
certain properties are zoned for uses, as the supervisor said, that are allowed, assuming you follow the rules and the codes and the permits, et cetera.
There are restrictions on percentage of coverage you could have on a certain lot size. There's restrictions that way. So you don't put a mansion on a 50 by 100 lot, things like that, to try to control those things.
There's also not a lot of buildable pieces of land in Mount Pleasant. It's kind of rare to find a piece of property. So it's not like it is an abundance. It's somewhat limited in nature.
Because I guess hearing all of this happening so often, we're seeing it happening more often. That's my sort of stance, is I constantly seeing like messages of there is rezoning happening here or rezoning happening there, and we're coming up like, well, hold on, we're not trying to say pause all development. Let's kind of strategize and think through this type of development.
If, like referring to like Cedar Knolls, which is a topic, it wasn't on the market until a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So it's not something anybody's been focusing on until now. Now
Right.
we have to focus on it. What's
Right.
going to happen there?
And-
There was proposals for 1,500 units up there. We told them, go away.
Okay. And keeping that in mind, could there be, I'm not saying we can anticipate the future, but let's say if somebody comes and say they want to build a data center in this area, what would then the response be?
Well, that goes back to what Mark was saying, that there's certain requirements, zoning requirements. There's a tremendous amount of electricity that's required for those, water, for that specific idea. So it's not like you could put it anywhere. Right now, I don't even think you could put another data center in the area with the grid the way it is. I don't know.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Just one thing on the public hearing on the Architecture Review Board. We didn't technically close it, so I really have to formally close it. I don't know what we.
You voted on it, it's
So,
okay.
well,
What's that?
so,
Okay, yeah.
You voted on it to approve.
but we
the
didn't
law.
close it, so Resolution 226-26 should close the public hearing, and Resolution 250-26 should pass the resolution, should pass the,
So we could vote on closing.
So
the
how
so we
she
we
set it up.
closed it on Resolution 226-26, we closed the public hearing, now we have to adopt it.
Why don't we finish this one, because you could probably adjourn this one,
Yeah,
assuming you do, and go back, we'll do that in a second. Yeah.
so that's,
Because
these
we're
are
on
the
the
numbers
public
we have.
hearing on the steep
Oh,
slopes
she
right
did?
now.
Yeah,
But we'll keep it open.
250?
so 226-26 closed it, 250-26 will pass it.
I thought we voted for it.
No, we just closed.
We didn't vote to close it.
That's what I
So you
thought.
want to do the steep slopes, you want to adjourn that, or you want to keep it open, what do you want to do?
On the
then go
steep,
back.
well,
Steep slopes, I think we should
I'd
keep
like
it
to
open.
we want to keep that open,
Keep it open.
continue that
Yeah,
hearing,
Do you want to just make a date for that?
July 14th is the next one.
July 14th.
Want to take a motion on that? or just-
Resolution 227-26 will continue that, this public hearing.
Hold on, there's only one meeting in July.
Just,
There's only one public meeting in
There's
July,
a summer schedule.
right, and one in August.
well, two things, you wanted to apply to properties, you better pass the law.
I'll
You're
make a
asking
motion
two
to keep it
different
open
things.
To July.
If you adjourn
to
it
July
more,
14th.
projects may get done. If you don't, it may get approved, and it may apply.
Motion by Danielle,
I'll second it to keep the public hearing open for steep slopes.
second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So you want to go back and adjourn the public, close the public hearing on
Yeah.
the first one?
So Resolution 226, there was a motion by Danielle and Joe
To close the public
to
hearing.
close it. And then Resolution 250-26 will approve the resolution.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Motion by Danielle,
And I'll second it.
second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to the public hearing on steep slopes. I'm sorry, wetlands. Freshwater wetlands. Public hearing is open.
Stephen Cavey, Conservation Advisory Council Chair. Before I begin the quick comments that we have on the Wetlands Code revision, I want to support some of the other comments that were made with regard to a moratorium. And pointedly, Darius indicated that time is of the essence. Tick-tock, if we don't pass the code immediately, there may be other consequences that with applications that won't be affected by this code. A moratorium, brief moratorium, pending the final review and revision of these codes is suitable and typical among municipalities. We're not talking about a one-year moratorium or anything like that. It's a brief moratorium until we've gone through all the different aspects of elements of these two codes, steep slopes and wetlands. And also, as I suggested earlier, taking on tree preservation code. And I think a moratorium at this point would be a useful mechanism for the town board to have this close look at all these codes that we're looking at, so that applications in the pipeline and impacts and development that the town is going through at this time and going in the near future will be covered by these codes, because there can be a race at this point if there is no moratorium. So I would suggest strongly that the town board consider this. I know that it's an unusual step. I don't think this town board has done one other than the best one. I don't think there was anything that would be, but in any case, my point is that this is a moment in time that it would be useful to strongly consider doing it. I recommend it. Let me speak to the Wetlands Code. And again, we did meet yesterday. The Conservation Advisory Council met yesterday, last night. We spent some time. We're actually thinking about having a work session to go through some of the finer points and come up with a written comment for the town board to look at and hopefully act on. I'd like to see the moratorium for not just the reasons that I outlined, but also to give me a little bit of a break so that I don't have to come up with this report by the 23rd. Is that by the 14th?
14th.
14th? You know.
You could do it.
Well, we've done it, but I'm not saying I like it. But
That's why we picked you.
right. Okay. In any case, let me read these comments that I provided here. Wetlands are the critical natural infrastructure that we rely on for clean water, flood control, and habitat for a wide variety of wildlife and human health and safety. Buffers are the natural sponges and barriers protecting the wetlands. Wetlands are part of our common natural resources, and the protection of this environmental feature is only possible with buffer areas that are left open and undisturbed. The 100-foot buffer is one of the best practices right now in order to maintain wetlands so that they can continue to provide the environmental services that benefit all residents. Buffers provide natural filtration of toxins, reduce flooding impacts on wetlands and watercourses, slowing down water, and allow for a transition for wildlife in the adjacent built environment. The Council strongly supports amending the Freshwater Wetlands Code with a 100-foot wetlands buffer. There are a number of specific recommendations that we'll include in our written comments, and there are two right now that I want to address in the public and with the board. Briefly, the Wetlands District Control Map that's referred to in the code, I believe is the one that goes back to a hand-drawn map from 1989. We used it when we produced our natural resources inventory. The Conservation Advisory Council Natural Resources Inventory has updated maps that would be very useful in how the town proceeds in reviewing wetlands and designates what wetlands are, where they are. But in addition to that, one of the things that the NRI, Natural Resources Inventory, provided in its report was a map of likely wetlands. And that was done through topographic maps, satellite aerial maps, and some what we call ground truthing from adjacent roadways. We were able to pinpoint locations around the town, and that's in the NRI, pinpoint locations around the town where there are likely wetlands. And in fact, in a number of instances in planning board review on site plans, it in fact turned out that when wetland scientists and soil scientists were brought to review these applications, there in fact were wetlands there. So I'd like to encourage the use of the Natural Resources Inventory. The map there, which I still have a hard time navigating, but I'm sure there are more deaf people than me who can, goes down to the tax parcel level, and you should be able to identify these potential wetlands from the NRI. So I'd like to recommend that that be considered in how the code reviews wetlands and potential wetlands, and this 1989 Wetlands District Map really does need to be updated, and the Conservation Council can help in creating a better data source for wetlands in the town. which of course, as we know, are very important. That's why we're doing this revision of the code. The second thing I want to speak about is including in the definition of wetlands what are known as ephemeral or intermittent springs for protection. These are streams that may appear to be dry ditches, but after rain events, they convey water into other tributaries and eventually into large rivers and major freshwater systems. There was a recent study, which I just coincidentally happened to find in the New York Times several months ago. And this study showed that it estimated that 55% of the water flowing out of America's river basins, these are large water bodies, can be traced back to the millions of ephemeral and intermittent streams that only flow periodically. The code currently doesn't protect intermittent or ephemeral streams, and it doesn't create, in the definition, there's no definition of them, and there's no buffer protection for them. So while we regulate larger wetlands and watercourses, a significant portion of that water is coming upstream from places that are not regulated, the ephemeral and intermittent streams. So including their protection with buffers will protect the watercourses and wetlands whose sources are from these ephemeral streams. Let me just offer this support for what the town is doing. And my days of doing this stuff off of an index card and the top of my head are long gone. So when you turn the page. Mount Pleasant has seen the effects of more intense and frequent rain events and flood events. These code revisions will provide some measure to mitigate these impacts on our built environment, and at the same time provide environmental protection for the natural features that we all enjoy and benefit from. I applaud the town for taking this step. It's in the envision, and it took a while. I know none of these things happen fast, but this was not glacial, and I appreciate that. We're moving along. There are a number of ideas and concepts that we'll be sending in written form, but I again want to circle back and say that a moratorium is something that I think is critical at this point, so that what we wind up with, the outcome of these revisions, actually have the teeth for elements, for developments that are in the pipeline right now. Thank you.
Steve, I just have a question. Are there any instances where a wetlands dries up and is no longer a wetland?
With poor development, there is.
With poor development?
Well, if somebody doesn't monitor a they can. I'm not a wetland soil scientist, and I'm not an engineer.
You sounded pretty good there, though.
Well, I do my research before I come in.
I'm just,
no,
I've never heard of it. I just didn't know if that's something that ever happened.
What I was speaking of, I'm not sure I understand your question exactly. When I was speaking about these intermittent and ephemeral streams, they are not dried out wetlands. They are stream beds that appear to be dry, but then when storm events happen, they convey water through them. So they're not wetlands that were active and then died out. They're actually ongoing sources of water for wetlands and downstream. With regard to wetlands drying out, they take hundreds of years to develop. They don't dry out that quickly. But I'll tell you what can happen is if buffers are disturbed, and if there's impacts to buffers and pervious material that's added to them, the loss of the buffer has an impact on the wetlands, and the wetlands start to deteriorate and can recede. Will they actually dry out? It depends how large they are. I can't tell you. But it's a possibility. But to your point, Mr. Supervisor, the idea of protecting wetlands through a buffer and a 100-foot buffer is one of the many ways in which we can prevent that from happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Gargiulo, Chapel Road. I'm here to talk about the wetlands. Good evening, Town Board. I support the town's effort to strengthen Chapter 111 and increase the wetlands and watercourse buffer from 50 to 100 feet. I believe it's a positive step and an improvement over the current law. However, after reviewing the proposed amendment, New York State guidance documents, neighboring municipal codes, and materials made available to the public, I believe several important protections and implementation standards recommended by New York State guidance are either absent, undefined, or only partly addressed in the proposed amendment. My concern is not that the town is strengthening the law. My concern is that several provisions could make the law more protective and more consistent and easier to administer that appear to be missing or unclear. In particular, New York State guidance recognizes seasonal wetlands and other sensitive wetland resources that may not always appear on maps, but nevertheless perform important flood storage, groundwater recharge, water quality, and habitat functions. These resources do not appear to be expressly identified in the proposed amendment or definition section, as you stated. The definition section is particularly important because if resources are not clearly defined, it becomes difficult to ensure they are consistently identified, reviewed, or protected. New York State guidance also relies upon accepted delineation standards and clear methodologies for identifying wetlands and related resources. I do not see those standards expressly incorporated in the amendment. In addition, the amendment removes references to the New York State DEC and USDA personnel and replaces them with the term wetland scientist. I was unable to determine the rationale for that change or how the proposed language provides equivalent technical oversight, qualification standards, or consistency. I encourage the board to consider whether agency expertise, accepted delineation standards, and clear qualifications requirements should remain part of the review process. I also note that the proposed amendment appears to make wetland delineation discretionary rather than mandatory in certain circumstances. If the wetlands map is intended to serve only as a guide, I believe mandatory field verification should be strongly considered. I also encourage the board to consider whether applicants should be required to demonstrate that impacts to wetland and buffers cannot reasonably be avoided before approvals are granted. The amendment also references Wetlands Control District map if prepared by the town. Given the importance of mapping to implementation and enforcement, I encourage the board to consider maintaining and periodically updating official wetlands maps as part of the regulatory framework. In reviewing neighborhood municipal codes, I also noted several provisions that appear stronger than those contained in the proposed amendment, including mandatory wetland delineation, clearer permit standards, requirements demonstrating that impacts cannot reasonably be avoided, and stronger protections for sensitive wetlands areas. I encourage the board to consider whether those additional safeguards should be incorporated before adoption. Finally, while the proposed increase from 50 to 100 feet is a positive improvement, New York State guidance and several neighboring municipalities recognize larger buffers, expanded review areas, enhanced protections that may be appropriate for steep slopes, tributaries, wildlife habitat, headwater streams, and other environmentally sensitive resources. I encourage the board to consider whether a hybrid approach, a 150-foot review area, or enhanced protections for these sensitive sites would provide additional environmental safeguards while remaining consistent with regional practices. I would also note that residents have had limited time to review the amendment and supporting materials, but I did some work that I will give you. So I lost my place. It is not clear what technical review was performed, what materials were submitted to Westchester County as part of the review, whether maps were included in that review package, or how certain policy decisions reflected in the amendment were developed. For the records, the materials I am submitting provide substantially more detail than can reasonably be covered during a public comment. They include comparisons to both New York State guidance, neighboring municipalities, specific questions, and additional recommendations for the board's consideration. Accordingly, I respectfully request that the board consider these issues before adopting the amendment and ensure that the final law reflects a strong, clear, consistent protections for wetlands, watercourses, watersheds, groundwater resources, flood mitigation, and the community as a whole. Thank you. I also just want to, well, you'll see it in the attachments, but just with regards to the buffer area, I just wanted to tell you some of the the municipalities that already have 150 feet, which is Lewisboro, Pound Ridge, Newcastle, Terrytown, Croton-on-Hudson, North Castle, Cortland, it's a little bit between 100 and 150. So all of them already have adopted 150 feet buffers. Given that, I prepared a package which has charts and some information on law as well that I hope you will please review on behalf of my community.
Thank you.
Okay, back to my second page. Before I start, I also want to reemphasize what our chairman, Steve Covey, said about the moratorium. The moratorium will protect the town, or protect you, protect the residents that you're trying to support with these code revisions. The last thing we need is a lawsuit. Lawsuits are expensive. Gary's a nice guy, but I think he's earned enough on us so far. So just want to encourage a moratorium and really encourage having open hearings beyond July 14th. It's the middle of summer. I think this is a really important issue. So I please encourage you to keep the hearing open. As Nancy said, I think even 30 days is not enough. But thank you for Deborah for sharing those towns. I was going to share those towns as well. And I stated before, our town is the second largest town in Westchester County. We're part of the Bronx Intermunicipal Watershed Management Plan. The NRI, please look at the NRI. There's 300 pages there. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I was a little concerned that they were updating this and they were, with the maps, but with the GIS technology nowadays, the Conservation Advisory Committee has done a wonderful job in updating everything. However, I just want to share, the town clerk shared with me the NRI connection. It goes to the website and it's dead. It doesn't work, so we have to fix that. Moving on, I really believe that the buffer should be 150 feet, especially, we're considering the steep slopes, we're considering the tree preservation. All in all, we're a very mountainous region. If you look at the top of Hawthorne Senior Knolls, that's 500 and something feet. The bottom basin goes to 300. On the other side, it goes down to 360. So these stormwater and watershed issues that we have are tremendously affected by, these buffers. And to add to a question that was posed here, there's what you call vernal pools. Vernal pools are basically alive 3 months out of the year. They dry up in the summer, but they support like six species that support our environment, support the birds and other animals. So they may look like they're dried up, but they're not. They come back seasonally. What else? So I strongly want to encourage us to look at 150 feet as a wetland buffer, and I would rely upon the advisory committee to recommend buffer plantings, because that's a whole process in itself. Having the buffer, what's planted there, and they've done a lot of research on restoring certain properties that can basically navigate rainwater better than installing culverts, like doing it the natural way. Doing it with bioswales, doing it with amazing, natural technology. It's cheaper and it's better long term for the town, and it will cost less, and it will prevent the flooding and stormwater problems we have. Also want to recommend that there's some other things that we look at in this code. Code enforcement, and if you look at other towns, they have much larger code enforcement, and people do break these rules and break these laws. They have both civil and criminal penalties for violations in other municipalities. So again, want to thank you. I strongly encourage a moratorium, do the tree preservation plan, and I also I requested what kind of grants you guys had, and I looked up. There's a bunch of grants. I'll just share them with you. That they're they're coming up again, being reissued right now as we speak. But these ones are still alive through June and July, so I'll pass them on to you.
We're presently applying for them.
Dennis, can you show me that broken link at the end?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Dominic Vita Hawthorne, should have brought coffee tonight. I'll keep my
Espresso.
Yeah, some espresso or cappuccinos for everybody. I owe you all one. I just want to reiterate what they all said and not say it again, but I think it's really important. None of us are experts on wetlands. Get yourself the help. I say this to the planning board all the time. Get yourself the help to draft this correctly for our town. It's great to know what other towns are doing. It's great to know what best practices are. We need to know what works for town of Mount Pleasant, for our wetland buffers. Maybe 150 feet's good, maybe 200 feet in certain areas is what's needed. Maybe that level of protection is needed. Let's get the right help in place to help do this correctly so we don't have to revise it in the future. I truly appreciate what you're doing here, and it is going in the right direction. Just get the help that's needed to push it over the line. Thank you very much. I don't know if you need a secret determination in the record for this one. That's something you should consider. You might need a negative declaration, not sure. And then you did net developable, I don't know if that's a word, land for the steep slope protection piece. You may want to consider something similar with wetland buffers, right? So that people can't come in and develop on or encroach on those buffers. And I know it's a buffer for that purpose, but just consider that as well as part of, because, you know, so often we see with this cluster development that the conventional build is subverting these wetland buffers and going over the lines that they should be going. And yeah, sure, they'll say we're using 100 feet, but come on. We see the maps that they're drawing, they're going over the line. We all know it's not right. So maybe strengthening that part of it too would be helpful. And then just to beat that drum again, for this one, to get it on the record, yes, I support a moratorium on large development for the time being, for as long as it takes to get the expert help in here to get this done right for the town of Mount Pleasant. Not only because you all care, but because we all care. That's why people showed up tonight. I would also ask for this to be adjourned for the same amount of time, to be held over for additional discussion, because a lot of people in town really didn't hear about this till the last minute, so it'd be good to get some more comments out there. Thank you.
To introduce myself again, John Edwards. I live in Thornwood. I support this amendment. I think it's a good idea. My concern is very different from most of the people. Currently, there's a proposal to develop a residential golf community on some of the Rockefeller land. I like golf. I'm a bad player. My problem with it is that the pesticides and herbicides used in these golf courses is associated with an increase in Parkinson's disease. There have been a number of studies that have looked at residential communities, at occupational health, green space characters, and folks that work on golf courses and other places, and they found that the increased use of herbicides and pesticides has a increased association with Parkinson's disease, and this is exacerbated when the communities are linked to the water service. And the Rockefeller proposal, I'm familiar with the land, the eastern boundary of it borders onto the Gory Brook of Rockefeller State Park. For those of you that are familiar with the park, that's the 13 Bridges Trail. And if you, as you're walking south on the 13 Bridges Trail and you look to the west and look up that hill, that's where that community is going to be. So I don't know the viability of a business plan involving a golf course, but I don't know that I think that a residential golf course is not a good idea. As I said, there's a number of studies that have demonstrated an association between these golf courses and the onset of Parkinson's disease. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to discuss the wetlands? think we would all like to continue this.
Yes.
Resolution 22826 will continue this to the July 14th
Need a motion?
meeting.
Yeah, we'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing for the freshwater wetlands Town Code Resolution 22826. I moved for, keep the public hearing open.
Motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Danielle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to the supervisor's report. The call for a public hearing to consider application for a special permit to erect solar photovoltaic arrays. The New York City Department of Environmental Protection, Catskill, Delaware Water Treatment Facility. You can't hear? Call for a public hearing to consider application for a special permit to erect solar photovoltaic arrays, New York City Department of Environmental Protection, Catskill, Delaware Water Treatment Facility, located at 2 Walker Road. This is down where the UV plant is.
I'll make a motion.
We'll schedule that for same July,
Same date.
July 14th. Motion by Mark,
I'll second.
second by Danielle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have the receiver of taxes report, and now it's business from the floor. Anybody wish to address the board on any other town topic is welcome to do so at this time.
Good evening, Patty Rowles, Chappaqua Road, Old Chappaqua Road, actually. I'm speaking tonight regarding Claybird Lane and the mulch situation again. I had a visit from a police officer this week. It wasn't just happenstance. Anyway, he came to my house, so I said, "Oh, are you here because I got you in trouble?" And because of the fact that I had said that when I called for somebody to come and check on the mulch, that they had said, "Oh, we're not going to send the fire department, it'll be the highway department that'll go and check it out." And he said, "No, that's not why I'm here." And so he said, "Oh, I heard the policy changed." I said, "So what's the new policy?" And he said to me, "Oh, we put a water tank up there. So that's what they're going to use. They'll call the chief and he'll go up. But there's a water tank up there." Now, when you go and look at the water tank that's up there, it's actually a truck that probably doesn't hold more than 3,000 gallons of water. And I have a pond in my front yard that has more than 3,000 gallons of water in it. And I have a pool in my backyard that has more than 3,000 gallons of water in it. Neither one of them would put the fire out if my house was on fire. So I just want to make you aware that, yes, the highway department is not going to be the first one on call now, but I still don't understand why the fire department isn't going to go up there if there's a problem, and how they think 3,000 gallons of water is going to put out the fire. I mean, remember the fire that we had not that many years ago that was so big, took 38,000 gallons of water and 16 fire trucks, or 16 municipalities. We just have to remember that. And that whole area is vernal pools and waterways that go right into the wetlands that are across the street. So this is all connected. We just really have to be careful.
The process is not they're not supposed to be telling you, well, don't worry, there's a water tank. That's not the process. First of all, if there is a call for smoldering or smoke or whatever, the police department will send an officer there right away to check, because we have police officers in the area. Go there, check, see what's going on. Next, it would be the highway department and then the fire department. So the fire department is not being ignored on this.
I don't
But
understand.
we don't
what-
want to call the Briarcliff Fire Department if it doesn't need for them to go there.
But I understand that, and I know that they're volunteers, and I know that it's an issue for them. They shouldn't have to. But think of the amount of time that's being wasted. If first you have the firemen, then the highway department, and then you're calling the fire department. I mean, that seems like that it could be for the Briarcliff Fire Department to get there to begin with, because they're volunteers. Nothing against them; they do a great job. But that's 20 minutes before you're going to get them there. And you're adding all that other time in advance of it. Because I know you're saying the police officers, I do see them often on our road. But still, this building is 20 minutes from, almost 20 minutes from the mulch site.
Well, the
So
police
if-
officers patrol
I know,
that
but
area.
if they're not right in that area, and then you have to wait and wait, I'm just concerned that I do understand financially that it doesn't make sense to have everybody go up there, but that is a time issue, and fires do.
One thing from a
not waste.
technical point of view with these mulch fires, water isn't actually the best thing to put on them. The earth moving equipment
Right.
is really the most critical piece. So this combination of fire and highway is probably a good mix, because mostly what's really got to happen is those piles got to stay down. And if this thing does start to get any combustion, a little bit of heat to it, it's better to use the earth moving equipment to move it than to immediately put water on it. It's probably.
Right, and I do understand that, but there's a point where when you smell smoke and you're in your house and it's coming through the walls, and you go outside and you want to be outside and you can't be outside, these are all things that we have to consider. And if the smoke is that bad, then it can't just be a little smoldering. And
Well,
I
I know-
understand that you don't want to put water on it, but there's got to be something that's done about it. And I know you're trying, but it's got to be a daily thing. It can't be once a week or every other day. It's a growing
The
problem.
highway department has been up there. They cut down all the piles because one of the problems was the height of the piles.
Right.
And the weight and all that. So they worked on all that the past few weeks. And they're checking it constantly. I know Superintendent of Highways is there on a daily basis checking it. So I think we're in a lot better shape than we were before, safety-wise.
When's the last time you smelled smoke? Around,
Last week.
last week.
I wasn't home much this week, and so I didn't smell it. But yeah, my house is, I'm 3 houses from Claybird driveway, and certainly I'm at least 1,000 feet from there. But I smell it before the neighbors do that
Right.
live right there. It's because the way our property is higher, so it's even with the mulch piles.
I know Highway has knocked down all the piles. I was just curious, since that was done,
Yeah.
if there's been any smoldering. I have to go back and look at the date when he texted to say it was done, so that's why I was asking.
I think I made it clear last week. I agree with you. I'm vehemently against this policy. I want you to know that.
Thank you. All right. And going back to the water situation real quickly, as I said, I have a pond in my front yard, and we do not use any chemicals on our lawn. Our lawn is weeds. It's beautiful. It's green. You can't tell that it's not grass. People that live above us put fertilizer on their grass. Last year, my pond turned black from the fertilizer, and I live about 500 feet below them. So, just for example, what they were talking about, everything falls right in. My pond is always moving. It doesn't freeze over the winter, constantly moving. But it killed my pond because of the fertilizer.
Deborah Bergiulo, Chappaqua Road. I wasn't going to start with the fires, but in support of Patty, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to print this, I would like to remind you of what these fires look like. 2014, 2015, 2021, 2024, and 2026. A decade of fires at Claiborne Lane Mulch Site. I'm going to show you pictures that are from the news, okay? Channel 12, Daily Voice. This is my backyard too, okay? So you put a water truck up there, great. If water doesn't control the fires, then why is the water truck up there? Where is the safety policy for our residents? This is what we have to live with, okay? Now I'll make my comments. You need to remind yourself if this was your backyard, seriously. Okay, good evening. I was going to correct the record on something, but I'll wait for Danielle to come back. So I'll start with fire safety protection. So I want to return to discuss the ongoing fire and public safety concerns on Claiborne Mulch Facility. The town has a continuing obligation to protect the health, safety, welfare of its residents. That obligation does not stop because litigation has been filed. Okay? We have a residential site that has experienced fires, again, 2014, 15, 21, 24, and 26, as well as continuous smoldering events. The December 24 fire required massive emergency response involving 17 departments, tanker operations, 30,000 gallons of water. The April fire, which you're still calling smoldering, but I have the records, required 38,000 gallons of water and had over 16 fire engines that came up. These are not isolated incidents, they're documented pattern. Mulch fires are particularly dangerous because they begin deep within a pile through self-heating and spontaneous combustion. A pile can appear stable while combustion continues below the surface. When oxygen is introduced, conditions can change rapidly and flames can erupt unexpectedly. This facility is located near residential and nearby homes, wetlands, and environmentally sensitive resources. There are no hydrants. Every significant fire requires water to be transported to the site, placing additional strain on emergency resources and increasing response times. What is most concerning is that the town appears to be discussing reduced fire response to smoldering events rather than addressing the root cause of the problem. So has a fire marshal, a fire safety expert, an engineer, a consultant, New York State DEC, EPA, or other agencies recommended delaying engine dispatch to a known mulch fire hazard? If such policy exists, please release it publicly. If no written policy exists, then who made the decision and on what basis? Residents should also understand that the danger does not end when the flames are extinguished. According to the EPA, smoke from fires contain fire particulate matter, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, volatile organic compounds, and other pollutants that may affect respiratory and cardiovascular health. In addition, tens of thousands of gallons of fire suppression water do not simply disappear. That water can carry ash, sediment, combustion, byproducts, and contaminants into surrounding soils, drainage pathways, wetlands, and environmentally sensitive areas. These fires will repeat themselves. We need to protect our community. The residents deserve a prevention plan, a fire prevention plan, and a commitment that public safety will come before convenience. Now I want to talk about the berm. I would like to discuss the facts documented by the town, the New York State DEC, and other agencies. In June, town material was brought to the site and the berm was created within 5 feet of a wetland, likely without following the town's own Chapter 111 wetlands policy. Residents raised concerns regarding the site conditions, truck traffic, environmental impacts, and public safety. In January of 26, the New York State DEC personally visited and documented the site and communicated with the town regarding these conditions at the property. In March 26, the town ordered a cease and desist. In April 6, New York State DEC returned to the site. Yet on April 8th and 9th, we had another mulch fire. April 26th, we also had environmental testing on the site. And in April or May, notices of violations were issued. In May, contamination results became public, primarily the berm, with lead and other materials, and lead of 854 parts per milligram versus 63 residential. The New York State directed that material be removed from the site within a 30-day time frame, and advised that neither the town nor Modigos was authorized to bring the material to the site. In June, the town filed a lawsuit. These are the facts. Okay? The town was aware of the conditions in January. They were aware enough to issue the cease and desist. They were aware enough to communicate with the DEC, and the town was aware enough to conduct the testing. So the question is, if the town was aware, then why was the town not aware enough to stop this before it reached to the point to file a lawsuit? In a recent email, Supervisor Fulgenzi stated that the removal will be determined through the town's litigation with the Modios. If the town believes the removal must wait for litigation, then what is the town's plan to protect the residents in the meantime? So here are my questions. Is it the town's position that residents must wait for the outcome of litigation before remediation? Is it that we have to wait for the removal for litigation?
I didn't say that.
You did in an email to me.
I said we have to wait for the
Derek,
litigation.
should we be answering these questions since this is a litigation case? I
You
mean,
said your
this
hands were
is-
tied.
This is
I think
live.
comments could be made, and I would recommend no
Right.
response at this point. If there's
Okay.
a response to Ms. Gargulo that I could give to her, I will at
Okay.
another time.
Fair enough. Then I'll just read my questions. So, if that's your position, and we have to wait, okay, then what interim protections are currently in place? What stormwater controls exist? What erosion controls exist? Now we're talking about protection of us, okay? Why is there no visible silt fencing? How is contained material being prevented from migrating during these storms? What will the town commit to an independent third-party oversight? What is the contingency plan if another fire occurs? Those are the questions at least you can think about and answer, okay? The other thing I want to bring to your attention is on permitting and oversight and accountability. The town clearly understands the New York State DEC permitting requirements. We know this because the town operates other facilities subject to DEC regulation and reporting requirements. The town's own Picantico compost facility has operated under DEC authorization. My understanding is that the permit expired in June of '24. The renewal process started in December of '24, and as of July 25, it was still incomplete. I'll give you the paperwork on that. I would appreciate any update regarding current status of that permit and how the town has been allowed to continue to operate its compost facility for nearly a year with no reauthorization of its permit. Who at the town is monitoring these important processes and activities? And if you know that a site like that should be permitted, why wouldn't you do the same for Claybird Lane? So I'm not going to read the rest of this, I'll submit it, but I will just finalize with this. The town's actions and omissions is authorizing, facilitating, and overseeing operations at the site resulted in adverse conditions affecting neighboring residents, including environmental, safety, traffic, and quality of life impacts. As the property owner and governmental entity responsible for protecting health, safety, and welfare of its residents, the town has an obligation to ensure that such impacts were prevented, minimized, or promptly addressed, and the town has a continuing obligation to protect public health, public safety, and the environment. So determining liability can take years. Protecting the residents have to occur now. On that note, I suggest you find out if this permit is even in place. Thank you. And if it's not, please do it.
Anyone else wish to address the board?
I'll keep this short. Dominic Vita, Hawthorne. Well, it's great to have reviewed the budget for 2025 against GAAP to make sure everything was all in accordance with GAAP. I think what the town really needs to have is a formal budget review for this year. We're at the halfway line almost. We need to see budget versus actual for 2026. How are we doing? Are we on line to keep within the approved budget? Are we going to overspend and under budget? What's going on? I think all the town residents deserve that explanation.
So you want to review the 26 budget now?
I think what the comptroller can provide is actual versus budget, right at the halfway mark. They probably do it on a quarterly basis already.
We're already looking at expenses of each department, trying to tell each department to watch their spending, to try to
Beautiful.
cut back. It's nothing new.
The question is, how are we doing, right? Are each department keeping to their approved budgets, which they haven't done in the past, or are they overspending?
Anything that went over budget, in most cases in any of the departments, was not due to just spending money haphazardly. It was different situations that affected it, like in highway, the flooding, the damage.
Overtime for snow removal, for one, right?
Yeah.
So
it's not like departments just intended to just spend the money. That's not how it works here.
No one's suggesting
No,
that that's what.
you're going in that direction.
Okay, well,
And I
let's talk
understand
about.
that.
Shall we talk about that? January.
You can.
January. There was a lot of POs that were put out for things that maybe should not have been purchased.
Like what?
Oh, the building department purchased 4 new iPads and a whole big system for 2026. Why couldn't they use what they've been using all along? Why do they
They
need
never
new
had
stuff?
those.
Correct.
First of
It was
all,
all
this is
new.
to-
It was all new.
Well,
Why do
because
they need
let,
it?
let me just explain
Yeah.
something, all right? I've been around in
lot longer
building
than me.
departments for a long time.
Yes.
We're like 10 years behind most municipalities as far as keeping up to date with inspections and everything else. This is a better way of record keeping. We changed the software in the building department. It all connects seamlessly now. Things get done quicker, easier, more efficiently. That's the whole idea here. Okay, it's not to just spend money, believe me.
There's been structural imbalance in the budget for the past 10 years.
Oh, yeah?
Supervisor Fulgenzi, yes, it's documented. It's out there. That's what we see. We see the high level numbers.
So
we
this
don't.
started when I started here.
Well, that's
so
all.
this-
That's all we
the
have.
imbalance-
That's all we have in the record. We can go back if the record's available to when
I'd
Miss
like to
Mayberry
know
was
what
in
you're
that
talking about as far as structural imbalance. That's what I'd like to know.
overspending and under budgeting year on year.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, that's what
That's false.
That's what the trending has showed. Okay, so in any event, for 2026, I understand I don't have your attention, but for
You don't have to have it.
2026, it would be great for the stakeholders of this town to understand where we are, because in a few months, come October, we'll be having this discussion where we're going to hear that we're in an affordability crisis. We don't have a fund budget reserve that's enough to sustain us. We're going to have to borrow money after we've been knocked down a couple of times. Sure,
Doom and gloom.
where we are is fine to borrow money. I understand that.
We're not borrowing money.
But it's not where we were. I understand that you're projecting now what we will and won't do, but things could change, like you said.
Yeah.
You know, and we
They
might
do.
have to, right? And so we also need projections into the future, right? Financial projections. These are all on the list that Ms. Zano took from my conversation with the board last November. And while I appreciate that the town board is doing a lot on the budget, I don't feel like us stakeholders are hearing about it. And that's what I'd like to hear, right? One of the things.
What would you like, a weekly update?
No, I'd like a quarterly update, actually. I'd like to know how much we're spending on a quarterly basis. I'd like to know where our tax dollars are going, just like the school board does. When they raise taxes, they tell us. They give us a breakdown. Here's how your money is being spent. I brought this up before. I'll bring it up again. That's what I'd
Want it
like to
here?
know. I would love.
Here, you can have it.
I would love to get a copy of that. I would
You're
love to
welcome
take
to.
a look
Take
at that. That's 2025. That's great. I
No,
would
you
love
want
to
it,
see.
no, you're telling us for the past 10 years, we've been mishandling funds.
I didn't say mishandling. I said overspending.
Whatever word you
under
wanna use.
budgeting.
I understand what you're
Structural
saying.
imbalance.
Okay? That's,
So
that's very improper to
It's not
misconstrue
improper.
that.
It's the numbers. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. You could take offense to it. No one's saying
I
you're
did.
at fault. What we're
What are you
saying
trying
is,
to say, though?
I'm trying to say that more attention needs to be paid to these kinds of things.
So you think
if
we
there's
ignore
a
this?
trend, I'm
We
not
think
saying
we
you
ignore
ignore
this
it.
all
I
the
didn't say
time.
ignore. I'm not sure why you're taking offense to this. What
I should.
What I'm suggesting is more attention needs to be paid to our budget and how our money's being spent. You are our fiduciaries. You are marshaling our assets, and that needs to be something that's taken very seriously. and I don't believe it is being taken seriously enough. That's all.
Your opinion.
I've asked. It is my.
Okay?
It's absolutely my
And
opinion.
that's not the way we operate this town board.
I've asked for a
Or
lot
have
of.
we in the past?
I've asked for a fund budget policy, a fund
I'm
balance
sorry,
policy.
that's not the only thing we do on a daily basis here.
I've asked for additional
Okay?
reporting for stakeholders. We haven't received the kinds of things that we need to know that our
never
money is
enough.
being
It's never enough.
is. Okay, so I.
I'm not
I-
transparent. We did things with on Facebook. We do it on the town website to give more information. We've done more information sharing in the past 10 years than ever been done here in this town's history. But it's never enough.
More can
I've
be
had
done.
people saying to me, I didn't know anything about that. I said, well, it's on the website. Oh, I don't go there. Oh, I don't go to the meetings. What do you want me to do? Deliver a letter to you?
Some towns do that. Some towns actually provide a newsletter a day after the town board meeting to let people know what went on. Terrytown does it. Other towns do
provide
it.
a
No
video.
one's-
People can
no
watch a
one's-
video.
People can watch the
I-
video. People
right.
can get updates. I totally agree with you, right? More people should tune in. I totally agree with you, but there is more that can be done and should be done.
Always more.
And we should never stop improving, right? Just like Home Depot, we should
And
never
we
stop
don't.
improving. So that's one comment, and I meant to keep it short.
Yeah.
The other comment is on Claybird Lane, and I mentioned the 5-year forecast on the budget too, and I think that's one of the asks that I have that Ms. Zano collected, so not to belabor the point, but that would really help us. Having a 5-year, even a 3-year forecast for the budget going forward would really help us. On Claybird Lane, I read the complaint. It's another litigation. I get that, right? And we should probably ask ourselves, why another litigation? Could it have been prevented? What could we do better? But what's being done to make and keep this area safe, right? We're all affected. We all have to pay the costs that are incurred by this oversight or maybe lack of oversight here. And shouldn't we be certain that we are not allowing the same person who should have been overseeing the site all along and stopped it from getting out of hand from being the person who's now overseeing its cleanup? Perhaps someone else can be in charge of the oversight of that site.
DEC is in charge of the cleanup. We are being directed by DEC, and they will be
Perfect.
watched as it's done.
They have complete control of the site, and they're providing.
They're not on the site, no.
Who's on the site? Who's
Highway.
Highway.
Nothing is happening at the site. Nothing's going in, nothing's coming out. Highway goes there to check the smoldering.
Do we have the right people at Highway overseeing it? Okay.
Yeah, the
good.
majority of them are volunteer firefighters. So yes, we have the perfect people there.
Because there have been a lot of fires in the past when Highway's been there. We just want to make sure the right people are there doing this. Thank you.
You're
That's all I
welcome.
have. Thanks.
So I would note, there is the controller's memo every 2 weeks that shows the spend. That the board approves. So, you can read that.
Hi, sorry. I had a question. Are we allowed to ask questions about the budget from earlier?
Sure you can.
Oh, okay. What? Loud? What?
The audit.
The audit, yeah. Sorry, I'm just a little tired.
The audit?
The audit.
Or the budget?
25 audit was what the president.
Yeah, the audit, but I guess a question in general. I know, I was trying to research this, not to ask something that is already out there. The budget itself is released around like December, I think. That's when we have like the meetings and stuff. Is that
But
right?
the final.
The final.
is in the early December. Yeah.
Early December. Is there a way to do like a preliminary budget
We do.
We do that.
Several.
meeting?
There's
There
like
is-
three different meetings on,
yeah.
on the
There
budget.
is already meetings like discussing what the budget would look like before December.
The budget process starts August.
We start putting numbers together in August.
So, and then it gets discussed in work session, and then there's at least 3 public hearings.
So,
It's
so there is-
mandated. We're
so there
mandated by
is-
New York State to
So
follow.
there is already public hearings
Oh, yeah.
prior to December about.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that would be in the town website for the scheduling, or?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm a little bit confused on the Claybird thing, because of the, I asked this before, but I don't think I was very clear about it. So we issued a litigation with them, and then we're not holding them accountable for actually cleaning it out. I thought I heard that at the last meeting, Right?
We're
There's
not
a
what?
lawsuit filed
Yeah.
that asked the court to mandate that they remove all the material.
Is that a literal removal, Darius?
Is that a what? I'm
A
sorry.
literal removal, because I'm stuck.
Literal.
I'm stuck on if you
And
feel.
damages and
Okay,
everything.
okay. Let me just finish the question,
Sure.
just to straighten me out.
Sure.
If you filed a lawsuit, I assume part of that, if you can answer it, is that they created the contamination. I'm still stuck. Why would we want the people who did the contamination to literally remove that stuff when it has to be, I guess, supervised by DEC? I get that. But that has to be done in a very particular manner, as I understand it.
The contamination there's a lead in the berm. The rest of it is not. The mulch is
But
not.
still, should they be removing that?
DEC mandates where it will go, and they will tell us and whoever removes it where it goes. And you gotta comply with that with tickets.
But still, like, again, putting the fox in charge of the chicken coop, why would we ask the
It'll
people?
be looked at. Well,
You
we're not-
follow me? I mean,
we're not there yet on who's gonna remove it and when, but
so I have just a question with that, and I'll
you may
just
not
leave
agree
it.
with our request, but we think that's the best thing for the town at this point, to ask the court to ask them to remove it, to demand that they remove it. We're waiting for the court to respond.
Under the guidelines of DEC, and that'll be done
Yeah,
correct.
DEC
I mean,
has
we don't want to create a more difficult situation that they do it just, badly, so that's.
I mean, they're gonna take it, put it in a truck, bring it
Okay.
out to a facility and provide the requisite tickets to say where it went.
Okay, well, maybe when you get there, you can clarify
We're
for
not there
us
yet.
about how they're doing it appropriate for the quote-unquote only lead. Because that's where I'm having a disconnect. Why put this people who did it in
Understood.
charge of taking it? Seems kind of strange.
Understood.
I understand why you want to do it from a money perspective. but-
Understood, dear.
Okay.
I get that.
Thank you.
This is just a follow-up to the audit earlier. So when we were all at the coffee with Carl a while ago, and you talked about how the auditors would do a presentation, we were under the impression that we would be able to ask questions to the auditors on the report. So is that going to occur at some point, and will that report be made available to the public? Because when I go to the town website, the last audit report I see on the town website is 2018, and I don't even see 2024 unless I'm looking in the wrong place. So I would like it to be available for transparency purposes for the community, so they can be able to comment if there's any comment on
The
it.
audit report will be posted on the website.
Okay.
It's not something where we go back and forth, say, why'd you put that number and why'd you put that? This is a bonded company that must take numbers from the towns, the operation of the town, and strictly list them the way they have to be listed. It's not like, not like we tell them, hey, make sure you put that number there. That
I'm a finance professional. I understand an audit. So besides being able to review the actual versus budget, so we understand what is in the report, which is, I think all of us probably want to get a sense of what that is. One question separately that I would have on that audit report, because I don't see it, is that if you have footnoted in the audit report for 2025 a footnote for the ongoing litigation, because that should be in an audit report. So if not, I hope your accountants know, and that they take whatever proper language that they need to put in the audit report.
That's 25 report.
I understand it's a
And yes,
25
there
report.
is, there is reports from counsel to them of ongoing litigations that they consider in writing their report.
Right, so even
They
if
have
it's even if it's 25 report, by the time they issued it, you had already discovered the information and filed the lawsuit, so they would make a footnote.
That's their I don't know what they do.
Yeah, that they would make a footnote.
Well, we provided them with the record.
Okay, so hopefully
Information related to legal.
I mean, they might not have any numbers or reserves or at this point perhaps, but, the footnote would be out there because it's gonna impact, taxpayers at a later point.
I think I saw it in the document, which you're mentioning.
Thank
The
you.
report will be online when, tomorrow, usually?
And can we put 24 online also? Because I only see 18. And unless, Unless, Emily, it's on the site somewhere, and I just don't know where it is, if you could just direct me
I don't know
tomorrow.
if it's up yet. I didn't even get that.
I don't
yet.
even see 24.
The town
We
board
just
just
got
got this
I didn't
before
get it
this
yet.
meeting.
No, this is
That's why
25.
it's
This
not
is
online.
I didn't get it yet. They
This is
just-
25, I didn't even see 24. I didn't even, the only
She's asking
report
if
I
24 is on the
see,
website.
the only report I see on the website is
She's saying that she may be-
2018.
Is it under the controllers?
I'll take another look. Maybe you could direct me tomorrow, just tell me if I'm not looking in the right place. Thank you.
Okay, it's not something I would post, but I can help you find it or get it up there. I don't even see where it's actually.
Good evening. Anthony Negrelli, Thornwood. I've been a resident in the town of Mount Pleasant since 2012. For over a decade, I have endured persistent violations of the town's 8 a.m. noise ordinance. Despite making over 50 documented calls to the police department and meeting directly with the police chief, captain, and town supervisor, no summonses have ever been issued. Being faced with total administrative inaction, I had no choice but to file a lawsuit with the Supreme Court. After providing evidence of the violations to the court, I secured a favorable ruling in October of 2024, ordering the noise to cease. Unfortunately, the violations resumed twice this year. While the building department confirmed these instances violated the ordinance, town leadership still refuses to act. The town attorney ignored my follow-up inquiries, stating that he does not represent me, and the town supervisor tells me his hands are tied, choosing to politely ask the lawbreaker to stop rather than actually calling for action. The town is failing to enforce its own laws and protect its residents. The town's refusal to enforce the code and uphold a court ruling is unacceptable. I am bringing several previous unanswered questions to tonight's meeting and would request formal clarification on the following. How many times must an ordinance be violated before the town of Mount Pleasant actively enforces it?
I don't issue summonses.
I understand. So is there a number of times that somebody can violate an ordinance before it's enforced?
I don't believe so.
Okay. What is the maximum number of times a party can violate an ordinance before being issued a fine or a summons?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't issue summonses.
I understand that you don't. I'm just curious, how many times can someone violate an ordinance in the town for 10 years before they have any repercussions or any summons or fine for it?
I've only known of your issues. You live right next to the shopping center. I just learned of this within, 6 months maybe?
Well,
You
we had a
told me
meeting
about it?
in 2024. You and I met about it. 2024. It was over almost 3 years ago.
And I have no control over the shopping center, it's private property. If the officer catches somebody, what I'm told is if they catch somebody violating, they can issue a summons.
You say they can, but they never did. I got a FOIL request for the past 10 years. There has never been a summons or a fine given to that party.
And they
I
have
just don't understand how that's possible in the town, though. How many times does somebody have to make a complaint for somebody to act and to do something? Sending the police department there doesn't do anything. It's just a waste of time. You know, and I don't want to get into it because it's probably not the right place, but it's, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm trying to understand it. I brought this to your attention plenty of times. I just don't understand how it's possible that it's ongoing and there's no repercussion for any of the offenses.
You had made a point that I haven't done anything. This is what you said to me. When am I gonna do something? I talked to the police department, I talked to police officers about it, talked to the landscaper, I told him what he shouldn't be doing. I don't know what else I can do.
Well, I don't know who else to go to. The police department, I went to the chief of police, I went to the captain of the police department, I went to the town supervisor, I went to the town attorney. Nobody is helping me. So I don't know what, do I need to go back to court and file another lawsuit against the town to fix it? I don't know what else to do. I don't know how many people I can ask. I emailed the entire town board twice Not one response from, not that I don't know if that was proper or not protocol, but I didn't get a response from anyone, so I don't know who else to go to.
When's the last time they violated the ordinance?
It's
About?
February, twice. January and February, twice. And the building department confirmed that they violated it twice.
Okay, and when did you speak to Chief and the landscaper? Do you know what
We've
month
been-
that was?
We've talked
I
about
mean,
this for
is it
months.
possible that after, since he's spoken to them, they've stopped?
I got an email from the captain saying that it's not a police matter. So I should call, and then Carl said that he's gonna let the owner of the shopping center contact me so we can have a discussion, but I don't know what we have to talk about. I don't enforce law either. I'm a town resident. I don't know, you telling him to call me isn't gonna help me. I don't know what that's gonna do.
I thought he should hear from you.
But he's heard from me. I've sued him and won. I mean, I don't know what you're saying, though. You're saying, I'm going to give him your phone number. It's like you're deflecting it because you're not trying to deal with the issue, and maybe you
I
don't.
don't know what else you want me to do.
Is the issue mainly the snow removal, right, I remember?
No, the issue's been going on for 10 years.
January, February.
The first time I spoke to you was about the snow removal, 2 times.
Right, my understanding is that you were upset because.
I wasn't
there was a
upset.
Just let me finish. A
Okay,
major
finish.
snowstorm, they were clearing the shopping center so people could get to work and
No.
there wasn't a danger.
No, that's
to
incorrect.
people, And you ended up filing a lawsuit.
No, you're
about it.
incorrect. No, you're
You didn't
incorrect.
file a lawsuit?
I did not, no.
There was a lawsuit about.
That was
where
way
you-
before that.
Where the court said that they can't start before 8 AM.
Correct, in 2024.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
And fine, and if they are doing it, there's 2 options. Someone could give them a summons from the town of Mount Pleasant,
Mhm.
and there's a trial then before the judge, and the judge would say, you're in violation, is a $50 fine. Okay, that's one option. Option number 2 is, you could potentially go to court and say, in Supreme Court, they're violating your order, and they should be held in contempt. That's something you could do. That's not something we would necessarily do, because we could maybe bring a lawsuit too, and say you're violating our code, have them stop. That's a possibility too. We understand since February, I know the supervisor's talked to you, there's been at least 30 to 40 emails about this, back and forth, where he has gone out of his way to call the police, to talk to the police, to talk to the property owner, to talk to the landscapers, to stop. You said here, there hasn't been an issue since February. We will continue to contact that property owner to tell them it is not acceptable to start before 8 AM. I think it was for snow removal, if I remember the decision correctly. So we shouldn't have a problem. We will reinforce again, come in winter, that this is not acceptable, but you gotta be careful with the snow removal because people wanna get to the store. And then they
Okay.
drive,
urgent
and then they go
care.
over the curb, and they get hit, and then there's a lawsuit about that.
Yeah, no, and listen,
I used to live next to a big facility, and I would hear it 3 times a year. You hear the beeping at 5 in the morning. You're not happy, and you go back to bed, and the snow goes away. It doesn't happen again. It's where you're located, but the
No.
supervisor has
Okay.
gone out of his way
Okay.
to try to make sure that this doesn't happen. He can't force police to give tickets. Then we get in trouble for that. I
Okay.
can't force them to give tickets. But we're trying, you
Yeah.
live in a commercial area where they need to clean the shopping center to make sure people don't get injured.
Okay, what you're
The
talking.
problem is people gotta get to the store.
But wait-
People want water, people want things, so they have to clean it before 8 AM sometimes. They try to stay away from your side, they go to the other side first, is my understanding?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
I don't,
so.
I don't watch
So-
them at 4:30 in the
I
morning.
mean, when
You're-
someone comes
you're-
into the shopping center and they can't get through it, they go like, why isn't it clean?
No, you're
That's
right.
the other comment.
No, you're absolutely right.
So what
but,
do we do?
But it snowed, and then 4 days later, when all the snow was removed and the shopping center was open and there was hundreds of cars in and out, then they were moving snow at 7
That
o'clock in the
should
morning.
not happen.
I know, but it happened. So I brought it to your attention 2 times.
The police should go out there.
But they don't, though.
Send
That's what
them
I'm saying.
to
They don't.
They
So-
do. They do.
They don't. They just go out there. Hey, Ed, how's it going? And they drive away.
Well,
That's it.
We can't tell the police what to do.
No,
That's
I know.
trouble.
So then you're
That's trouble for us.
So you're advising me that I should go back to court?
I'm not telling you what. I can't give
Oh,
you advice.
I know you can't. I know you told me you can't.
I'm not. You're a
No,
lawyer,
but you
you know?
gave me two. You gave me 2
There's
instances.
options in a public meeting. There's options. You may have options. The town is trying to make sure this doesn't happen. We get it. They should not be clearing snow at 6 in the morning when it's all clear. I agree.
Yeah.
Should someone give them a summons? Probably.
Right.
And we'll.
But why isn't
we'll-
it happening? Why aren't the summonses issued? I guess is the question. Why? What's the reason? Is everybody friends and everybody related? Is that the reason?
I don't even know who the person is.
Well, I'm curious. Why would that not happen? I don't. In my mind, if I called the police 50 times, wouldn't somebody just say, "Hey, let's ask the guy to stop doing something, and then if he continues to do it, we can give him a summons"? I mean, I don't know why this is such a difficult
We
thing.
will continue to, but the good part about nothing's happened since February, right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
They're not cutting grass early. They're not doing anything. They're not making noise early for the last 4 months.
No.
That's good.
No, it's great. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we will work with the supervisor to make sure that they're not doing it. The problem that you had where they're doing snow removal at 6 a.m. after the snow has been removed already. They cannot do that, and we will ask the chief to make sure that doesn't happen. And if it is, he should give us something. That's not gonna. They may stop him. $50 fine, $100 fine. Maybe it doesn't stop him. Who knows? It should, but that's our power. We can't arrest the guy.
No, I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for resolution. You know, like if
Well, we don't want them to do it either. We want to make sure you're happy, but we got to but we can't. We're bound by what we can do.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And
Okay.
the court issued the order. I mean, maybe you'd see a lawyer and say, "Hey, what can I do?" I don't know.
Yeah, no, so that's what I'm going to do.
I mean, you're buying near. I used to live next to a shopping center. It was loud.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
it
I don't
happens.
complain. I don't complain when they're around plowing the snow so people can get into the shopping center. I'm not bothered. It is what it is. But you know, I live by a shopping center. I know that there's going to be noise. But when it's unnecessary and it happens because
Agreed.
it's allowed to happen, it's not fair. It's not right to a resident
The
that.
town board's not allowing it to happen. The town board has notified the police.
Okay.
Is trying to make sure it doesn't happen again, and will continue to do so. Has talked to the owner and will continue to make sure it doesn't happen. If it happens, you got to let us know right away.
Yeah,
Police
of
should
course.
go out there, and if they're doing it, they should get a summons.
Okay.
In my
Okay.
opinion.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on with the agenda.
Good night.
No. Move on to our town clerk's report. I can't hear.
Control memo is about to be discussed. In
Yeah.
business day.
They did what they had to do.
Okay. Town Clerk's Report, Town Board Meeting, June 23rd, 2026. Continued public hearing to consider a local law amending Town Code Chapter 14, Article 1, Advisory Board on Architectural and Community Appearance. Public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 180, Steep Slope Protection. And public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 111, Freshwater Wetlands. Received and filed 7 planning board resolutions. Cara accessory apartment at 388 Nantahagan Road, approval of accessory apartment permit. The Fieldwood Club, 835, 855 Sleepy Hollow Road, SECRA resolution confirming lead agency, positive declaration, schedule of public scoping session. Blythedale Children's Hospital expansion at 95 Bradhurst Avenue, SECRA negative declaration. 50 Deerfield Lane South wetland permit, 28 Country Club Lane steep slope permit, Shell Service Station at 361 Bradhurst Avenue, special permit approval and renewal, and Cedar Knolls residential subdivision, DEIS scope. And also received and filed 1 notice of claim from Christian Lopez.
Item 2 will be referred to the town attorney.
Thank you.
Moving on to council reports. Councilwoman Zano.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, fellow board members, residents. My first item is purchase order 830-26-12. The vendor is Bray Process Control. This is from our engineering department. Authorization requested to purchase 1 6-inch and 1 8-inch Bray specialty valve for one of the 2 filter beds located at Mechanical Water Filtration. The unit is currently down and until the valves are purchased and installed. Cost of the valves is $10,850.24. Move for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Danielle, second by Joe.
Second, yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Our next item is Resolution 231-26. This comes from Rich Banquet, Highway Superintendent, seeking authorization to approve various expenditures eligible for reimbursement under the approved 2026 New York State DOT CHIPS, PAVE New York, EWR, STR, and POP programs. These expenditures will include in-house paving operations and contractor paving operations. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Danielle,
Second.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
My next item is Resolution 232-26 from David Smith, Town Engineer, Superintendent of Water and Sewer. This is authorization to accept a performance bond for site work at 40 Sawmill River Road. Original bond is being held in the Comptroller's Department. Move for approval.
Motion by Danielle,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
My next item, Resolution 233-26 from Lynn Durentis, Office Assistant to Sal Pinelli, Building Inspector. This is authorization to accept the blasting bond required by DEP for blasting activities at the Eastview site. Bond amount is $500,000 and has been submitted in response to a request from the building inspector. The bond has been reviewed and approved by our town attorney, Darius. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Danielle,
Second. By Joe.
by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, Resolution 234-26 from Rich Banquet, Highway Superintendent. This is authorization to release bond for curb cut permit 1510. The work has been completed and the road restored to the Highway Superintendent's satisfaction. Name JLB Homes, bond amount $540 for work performed on Stevens Lane in Valhalla. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Danielle,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is 235-26, again from Rich Banquet, Highway Superintendent. This is authorization to deposit a bond for curb cut permit 1524. The permit has been forwarded to the Office of Comptroller for deposit into the escrow account when the work is performed and the road restored to the Highway Superintendent's satisfaction. Name King Bear New York LLC. Bond amount is $1,080, and this is for work performed at King Street in Chappaqua. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Danielle,
Second.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I have so many bond cards. Okay. The next item is Resolution 236-26, again from Rich Banquet, authorization to deposit bond for curb cut 1525. The curb cut permit has been forwarded to the Office of Comptroller for deposit into the escrow account until the work being performed under the bond has been completed and the road restored to the Superintendent of Highway satisfaction. The name is Zapico Construction LLC. Bond amount is $1,080. Work is being performed Sleepy Hollow Road in Briarcliff. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Danielle,
Second.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
My next item is Resolution 237-26, again from Rich Banquet. This is authorization to deposit bond for curb cut permit 1526. The permit has been forwarded to the Office of the Comptroller for deposit into the escrow account until the work is performed and the road restored to the Superintendent's satisfaction, Superintendent of Highway satisfaction. Name J.B. and Sons Construction, bond amount $720. This is for work performed on Willis Avenue in Hawthorne. Move for approval.
Motion by Danielle,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, my computer I just lost it.
Which one were you on?
I think
She's on number 9.
Number 9.
Yep. So my next, my next item is Resolution 238-26 from Rich Banquet, authorization to deposit bond for street opening permit 6463. The permit has been forwarded to the Office of the Comptroller for deposit in the escrow account. Once the work is completed and the road restored to the satisfaction of the Superintendent of Highways. Name, Coolin Homes, bond amount $18,000. This is for work performed on Jackson Avenue in Hawthorne. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Danielle,
Second. By Joe.
second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And my last item is Resolution 239-26, again from Rich Banquet. This is another authorization to deposit bond for street opening permit 6464. The street opening permit has been forwarded to the Office of the Comptroller for deposit in the escrow account. Once the work is completed and the road restored to the Superintendent of Highways satisfaction. Name, Gabriel Paving. Bond amount is $19,200. The work is being performed on Deerfield Lane North in Pleasantville. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Danielle,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Councilman Bonanno.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, board members, and all those watching in the audience tonight. I'm here to read from the Controller's memo dated 6/23/26. The Controller's memo is available during normal business hours at the Controller's office. So the highlights from the Controller's memo at 6/23 are from the Licensing and Permits Department, $150,000 refund for on a building permit for the Brightview Senior Living Development. The next big item is from the pool, town pool, $6,500.77. That's the purchase of supplies and chemicals to maintain the pool. And then finally, from the Kensico Water District, there's $18,603.35. That is to replace a valve at the Kensico water supply. The total Controller's memo for 6/23/26 is $220,000, 738 cents, $220,738.36. I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Joe,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is purchase order 13526-02. It's $14,000 for the Lee Row GIS, and it's actually to maintain our tax map for 2026 into 2027. So I make a motion to approve $14,000 for the vendor Lee Row GIS.
Motion by Joe,
Second.
second by Danielle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Next is a bit of a tax refund here. $341.45 will be refunded back to some property owners on Willis Avenue. Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Joe,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Councilman Saraceno.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have two items tonight. First item comes out of the Recreation Department. This is authorization to enter into an agreement with the Valhalla Union Free School District for the 2026 summer camp usage. The town will be hosting its 2026 Great Venture Summer Day Camp at Kensico Elementary School for a fee of $15,000, which will cover all overtime and end-of-season cleaning costs. As with all camp items, I typically let you guys know that these are recouped through fees for attendance to the camps. I move for approval.
Motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
My second item is Resolution 244-26 out of the Parks Department. This is authorization to hire Zachary Stone DiGregorio to the title of Parks Groundskeeper effective tomorrow, June 24th, 2026, should we adopt this. Salary per CSEA Blue Collar Collective Bargaining Agreement. Step 1, Group 5. With that, I move for approval.
Motion by Mark,
Second?
second by Danielle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Good night.
Councilman Saliano.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My report is from the Police Department. We have several items for you this evening. The first item is a purchase order 30-26-09, Records Management Maintenance. The vendor is Intergraph Corporation. This is for PD. The total price is $16,849.56. I move for approval, please.
Motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The second item is Supervisor's Purchase Order Number 30-26-10, Less Lethal Launcher. The Police Department is endeavoring to enhance less lethal capabilities. These launchers may be used to incapacitate a violent individual, affording responding officers an additional less lethal option. They're going to order 6 shot launches, and again, this is for the safety of our police officers and to incapacitate a violent individual if necessary. The total cost is $3,143.30. I move for approval, please.
Motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Third item was hiring a police officer. We did that early in the evening. We wish him success. The fourth item is authorization to hire Matthew Knapp, the title of laborer in the Traffic Safety Department, effective June 24th, 2026. Salary per CSE Blue Collar Collective Bargaining Agreement. If approved, pending a physical examination, this will be effective Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. Again, we're going to hire Matthew Knapp per CSEA Blue Collar Collective Bargaining Agreement. I move for approval, please.
Motion by Tom,
I'll second it.
second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Thanks for coming out. Thank you.
Our town attorney, Darius.
I have 2 matters tonight, Mr. Supervisor. The first one is a proposed settlement of a tax certiorari case related to the residents at Edge on Hudson Condominium Level 1. There are various addresses as Legend Drive and Horseman Boulevard in Sleepy Hollow, New York. This is the GM site. The school district is the Unified School District of the Tarrytowns. This was settled with negotiations by the school district, the town, and the village. The new assessments are there. The proximate refund for all these locations is $5,000 from the town. So I'd request a approval of this tax certiorari settlement for those 3 years, 23, 24, and 25, for those lots that are relevant.
Can we do both of them?
Let's do that one, then we can do them both at the same time. And then there's the second one is for CPD New York Energy Corp. For 2 years, 24 and 25. It's section 112.9, block 1, lot 10. This is Mount Pleasant School District. Also has been agreed to by all the various entities, and that also is an approximate, just a little under about $4,000, not 5. So I'd ask for a motion to approve those tax certiorari settlements.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Danielle, second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our scheduled meetings, our next work session is Tuesday, July 7th, 7 p.m. Our business session, Tuesday, July 14th at 7 p.m. Next work session after that will be on August 4th at 7 p.m. And the business session, Tuesday, August 11th at 7 p.m. If there be no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, please.
Tom.
I'll second that.
Tom and Joe, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.